which I never even opened. Sorry, I'm gonna close it for the public. I'll ask my three, anyone that wants to speak in favor, anyone that wants to speak in favor, anyone that wants to speak in favor, anyone that wants to speak in opposition, anyone that wants to speak in opposition, anyone that wants to speak in opposition. And I will close the public hearing and open to the council.
So Grant, I have a few questions. I think we've got clarification that something formerly known as a mobile home is now known as a manufactured home, or was formerly known as a trailer is now known as a manufactured home.
Mhm.
So I thought at a previous meeting, we talked about, I don't know what we were calling them then, mobile homes being prohibited in town.
Mhm.
So I get that the lingo has changed, so mobile home no longer exists, right? And now it's a manufactured home. And I thought we weren't allowing them. But when I read through this, if say I inherited 5 acres from parents somewhere.
Mhm.
So I got 5 acres of land. And I wanted to buy a manufactured home for, like a 12-foot by 60-foot little manufactured home, right? As long as I dug we'll say it's a crawl space. I mean, that's what I have under my house, and that's a legal foundation. And that's pretty cheap to do.
Mhm.
So if I dug a 12 by 60 foundation or crawl space,
Mhm.
which is below the frost wall,
Mhm.
I could then put a manufactured home, previously known as mobile home or trailer. I'm permitted to do that. That's
Yes,
how I
that's-
read this.
Yeah, that's the proposal, and a mobile home would not be allowed because under the current state building code, every single type of single family residence due to frost protection needs to have a legal foundation.
Right, okay, so the one that I own, it's a northern model and it has all of that stuff already built in. It's got hurricane tie downs, all of that. I mean, that one I bought for 10 grand. So used, obviously, but if I inherited a piece of land and I got like a 12 by 60 manufactured home that met those criteria, that had the hurricane tie downs and the insulation or whatever we needed, I could put that on there and it would be a permanent residence.
Yes, and that is generally what the opinion of the council was, that that would be favorable once we figured out that every type of manufactured home by the current state building code needs to have a foundation.
Mhm.
We've already permitted manufactured homes at various properties, even though the ordinance says that it's prohibited. So the town set a precedent, and it seemed like the general consensus was that the precedent was a good one because we would have an option for people who don't earn as much money to, in this housing market, have a more affordable option, putting in a manufactured home with the foundation as a single family residence. And there is a bill right now, I think it was passed by the House a couple weeks ago. The Senate hasn't voted on it yet, where the state is going to require that manufactured homes be permitted on any lot zoned for a single family residential use. So I don't know if it would pass, but I think that that's a pretty good proposal. It allows a more affordable option for people to live in town. And the structural concerns aren't really in place anymore because you need a foundation.
And I'll be clear, I have nothing against mobile homes, trailers, manufactured homes, whatever we're calling them. When I got divorced 30 years ago, that was my option. I lived in Gloucester. I bought, then it was called a mobile home, and a mobile home park. And it was affordable living for me. At this point, if we're gonna allow them, I kind of wish that we hadn't voted against having a mobile home park, so they're in one area. This just, I mean, hear me out. I have no prejudice against mobile homes. As I said, I own one, I lived in one. And it worked for me. I just question them popping up all over town, and I've seen on your planning board agendas. And I know you're not gonna want to hear this, but it's been on your planning board agendas.
I
reducing
do want to hear it, yeah.
Well, reducing some of your lot sizes to 3.4 acres with 200-foot frontage. That is what concerns me.
Okay, so you just said that you have nothing against.
I don't.
You have nothing against a manufactured home park. But
I
a
don't.
manufactured home park implies increased density, which is why we went away from that concept. The concept of reducing house lots, I don't know why I would be said to not want to hear that. I'm the one who put it on the planning board's agenda. The planning board at their last meeting said that they don't have interest in reducing the minimum lot size outside of the Situate Reservoir watershed. Again, was not going to be for the entire town.
Mhm.
The proposal was only for a certain area of town. The planning board is not going to move forward with that proposal. So the reason why manufactured home parks were presented as being prohibited was because we don't want to see that kind of drastic increase in density. And if you truly don't have anything against mobile and manufactured homes, why was it presented in a negative light on a social media page that
Grant, I'm
the
gonna stop
planning
you there.
board was going
Grant,
to do
I'm gonna
that?
stop you
I
there.
mean, she's the one who brought it
Grant,
forward. and it's contradictory.
Actually, Grant, I didn't. And I just explained to you that I personally, it benefited me when I got divorced 30 years ago and I had 2 little kids and I lived in a mobile home park. I'll say it, I bought one. I do have one next door to me that I bought. But I think that there was a reason that they were prohibited after 1974.
And I think.
That
that
1971, but
planning
what's
board
that
has
reason?
moved in that direction,
Okay.
saying, and that.
But now-
Last planning board meeting, they removed that,
Okay.
Yeah.
lowering.
And I don't necessarily think that these homes would pop up all over town. It's just an option for somebody to install a manufactured home, which is a viable residence on a single family lot.
Mhm.
Now, again, I can't seem to wrap my head around how it wasn't brought forward, this whole, the whole lie that the council had approved something that it did not, that the planning board was bringing forward trailer parks. It's totally untrue. And there.
No, we voted.
That was, yeah, exactly. It was voted down, but on
Yes.
your social media page, you said the exact opposite.
I don't know what you're
Mr.
talking about,
Mr.
Grant.
Can I say something?
Mr.
Please,
Yeah.
respectfully, please, take a stop, take a time out. I think what's still happening, Grant, is I think there's still some residual thoughts that this idea of a manufactured home is by some way, shape, or form connected still to the concept of mobile homes with tires and parks and transient people. I think the way I looked at it when we first brought it up and when we first talked about it months ago was this is just an attempt to give people an option to buy a manufactured home that they can put on a foundation with a septic system and a well on an approved lot as a permanent residence. It is an option over a stick-built custom home that's running today $250 to $350 per square foot. I think correct me if I'm wrong, there's no intention or ability other than this new homestead rule for me to take a 5-acre lot or a 3-acre lot and start dropping mobile homes on it in excess of what's normally allowed for a stick build. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you could have more than 2 houses, separate houses on one lot unless one was an accessory dwelling unit. And no, there's no way that somebody could drop a home without a permanent foundation onto a property unless it was a temporary one.
So again, let me just say this again, and you correct me if I'm wrong. The opportunity for me or Heidi or anybody who is trying to look for a low-cost alternative, if using Heidi's example, which was a good one, if I inherited 5 acres and I'm able to build a home But I've got it on my mind that I could save 50% of my outlay of cash.
Mhm.
I could get a manufactured home.
Mhm.
Foundation, well, septic, all the same state building codes.
Mhm.
We're not skirting anything. So that prefabbed or dwelling, however you buy it, has to meet minimum state code. So the only difference here is we're distinguishing between mobile, manufactured, prefab. It's all gonna be an approved dwelling is an approved dwelling is an approved dwelling on a permanent foundation with water and septic on an approved lot that meets all the state standards.
Mhm.
Okay, and I can't take several of these and park them on a piece of property and call it a mobile home park because we
Correct.
don't allow
Right.
Yeah,
them. Okay?
that's right.
Fair
David,
enough.
David, I understand that, but let me point this out to you. So my house, I have a 3-bedroom house on 5 acres. My new assessment is $705,000. So I've got 3 bedrooms. How many kids can I put in there? Now we have a manufactured home that is 3 bedrooms, like the one I own next door, that is assessed at $236,000. And now I've got 3 kids in there. I've got more demand on services. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
My assessment is $705,000.
Yep.
I'm gonna pay taxes on $705,000. When we add mobile homes, and again, I'm not against them. It's just, I'm looking at how it affects the town financially. If I can increase the demand on the school system in my house, I'm at 705, I'm paying a lot more taxes. If I'm at 236 and I'm affecting the school system and our fire, right, and
Mhm.
our police and all
Okay.
these other
Yep.
services, I'm at 236.
Okay,
And so what I'm saying
I
is,
get it.
okay, that's my big
Okay,
concern.
so let's look at it this way. And again, I could be seeing it wrong. But who's to say that a manufactured home at 235,000, what's gonna stop me as a builder from building a stick frame home with my brother, who's a contractor, for 235,000 and tax the system the same way, but only build a $235,000 24 by 30 home? It's no real difference.
It's
You're calling
probably-
it a mobile home, but that's the stigma, that's the problem. It's not really a mobile home. It's an alternative to stick frame construction by a pre-manufactured home bought out of state or in state.
Some of them are absolutely
And
gorgeous
they are.
and bigger.
Oh, but
and
I know they
more
are.
But
I know,
there's
I
not gonna
know
be
they
any
are.
real difference, Heidi. In other words, what you're saying, I understand completely.
Mhm.
But I think you and I are still stuck from the old definition of mobile
I'm
home.
really not.
Well, so if your $235,000 auxiliary dwelling was stick built.
It's not auxiliary.
It's on a
It's
separate
on a
lot.
5
I
acre
understand,
separate.
But
lot.
there is a provision for an auxiliary dwelling. It's a state rule.
Yeah.
It's a state law now. So I could theoretically stick frame, prefab home, or a manufactured home. I'm not sure the town can really legally distinguish, and I think this is what Joanna was arguing with the planning board. I don't think we can tell people how to spend their money. If it's an approved lot and it's approved septic and well and foundation, you can buy that home and build it any way you want.
You can, if we approve this ordinance. This is
And,
what I'm saying.
and the state is going to most likely put into the, permitted uses section of the zoning code, the zoning enabling act, that every single town and city has to allow manufactured homes on single family lots. And
So
I
then-
think it's a good proposal. And if we currently have a vacant lot, then adding a structure to the tax base would be money that the town didn't otherwise have going towards the tax base. And that's the fair market value of a manufactured home, whatever the 200,000 is. A stick build would just be at a higher fair market value. So that's what the assessment is based on.
Understood.
Well, it's state law, then we have to follow state law.
Right.
Yep, so
I want to go
it's
for
So
this
would
one.
you consider I'm thinking it would be better having it on our terms than the state coming in and saying, this is how it's gonna be done.
So.
Well,
agree.
The other thing to think about too
I
is
understand
that
what you're saying.
we've
Yeah,
already,
me too.
we've already, that what we have on the books is this not being permitted. I mean, basically kiss it goodbye unless we want to rewrite this to say we're not permitting manufactured homes, because if you set a precedent that goes against what the zoning code says, you've just made the action legal. So the action was that we permitted a manufactured home with the foundation. So this ordinance doesn't really mean much the way it's written
when,
right now.
when did we do that?
The building official gave me an example of, I think it's on Pierce Road, a manufactured home that was permitted recently. It's happened a few times. Cheryl's seen them.
But that was prohibited, so I'm not sure how.
A manufactured home?
A manufactured home wasn't
What?
prohibited.
Manufactured home.
A trailer
Well,
was.
because we're calling it a different name now?
Well,
No,
so, well,
but
now,
it's-
so there's, there's,
Fab home on a trailer.
yeah,
No, a
there's,
mod-
It
there's,
comes in, yeah, if it comes in two
okay,
pieces.
a
it's 12 foot wide.
modular home
Is
is
different.
a manufactured
It is.
home if it
But-
has a foundation.
It is.
A mobile home has not been allowed for quite some time based on every permanent
Yes.
residence needing to have a foundation.
Yes.
So a mobile home hasn't been allowed for a long time, but
Right.
manufactured homes have been allowed for quite some time, despite the obsolete language in our zoning code saying house trailers or mobile homes are prohibited. You could basically interpret that to mean manufactured homes are prohibited, even if they have a foundation, but we have gone and set a precedent that says that's not true anymore.
Mr. Stone, you wanted to say something?
I wasn't aware of that.
I'm just worried about. I'm just worried about the effect on property values. You get a $1 million house over here and you got a guy that gets this piece of property next door. And he puts a manufactured home on it, even with a foundation. You're gonna drop that guy's property value.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I see your point. Here's the problem, in my opinion. I think what Grant's trying to say and what I had to get my head around is there's no more illegal distinction per the state. If you take a mobile home and put it on a foundation, if you buy a modular manufactured home and it comes in pieces because you can't travel across the road with a 36-foot wide building, they come in pieces and they're assembled on your property.
I get that.
But that's still gonna drive your values down. Do we stop them too?
That's
We can't, we already, yeah, but it's the same concept
That's what
now.
My first home was.
I haven't seen the
Yeah.
value
But the-
drop on a modular.
No, they won't.
Right.
But the look of it,
Okay,
Of a modular home?
No.
Mine was a.
no,
are we looking?
If the modular home's brought in pieces
A
to the site, it's still
manufactured-
manufactured elsewhere.
It
That's
is.
still a
It
manufactured home.
still fits the category.
I-
So here's the
I
thing.
get it, but
Could
it
we-
doesn't,
I'm sorry, we need to have just one conversation, and right now it's at the table. Thank you so much.
I have a problem with one thing, and I agree with I understand where everybody's coming from. But if the state is rolling this out, what you're saying is maybe we should have plat restrictions, because my house is 1.2 million and my neighbor's is 400,000. I don't like that. So what am I gonna do? Tell them they can't build unless
No.
unless we impose a restriction on square footage and dollar amount?
and I get that part. But
Because
the
that's where we're headed.
manufactured home that used to be a mobile home
Mhm.
does not look like a home.
A manufactured
It's a-
home that used to be
it's
a
a
mobile
trailer.
home isn't allowed anymore
Right.
because it would be mobile and it
And
needs to be
and it
permanent.
It's a trailer.
But it won't be a trailer anymore.
It
If
has-
if something happens to Heidi's
Still will
trailer,
look like a trailer.
she's got
Not
to do it by
necessarily,
the
could.
code now to rebuild it.
Cheryl, is what it is.
Well, Heidi, you
It's
lived in one
calling
and you liked
something-
it. And I
it's
think
calling
it's a
something
way
by
for
a
some of our kids to be able to stay in town and live in
Believe
town.
me,
I get it.
A
but
mobile
I get
home
it.
is
That's
mobile,
my
a
concern.
manufactured home isn't, so it's not,
One
it's not just
conversation.
calling it a different name. Now the argument about devaluing properties, if somebody built a small ranch home that was the same square footage next to $1 million home, do you think that the property values would still diminish to the same rate?
You know, I don't.
No,
And
No,
I don't
okay.
know if this town has ever considered that.
So then there's a couple more points that are kind of similar to that thought. If we have neighboring properties devaluing neighboring properties, then that's why screening is important on Route 6, because if you have open lot storage that's unscreened, it's an eyesore, it devalues property that's adjacent to it as
Understood.
well. And
Understood.
if we wanted to put flat restrictions on
Well,
lots, we could potentially entertain that, but when the Senate votes on this manufactured home bill, that will most likely be out the window as
Yeah.
well. Not for sure,
won't
but
be able
most
to
likely.
enforce it.
Do we play Russian roulette
Mhm.
and say, we're gonna have it our way? And do it before the state comes in, or the state votes on it? And they
I
vote it
get
down,
I'm
or
just
they vote-
voicing my
No,
concern.
and
We need to,
I
we need
get-
to,
I get all
we
of
need to
this.
voice our
I
concerns.
get all that. I get everybody's. I don't like playing Russian roulette.
Well, I mean, the
that
worst
is-
thing that happens is the state says we have to do it their way,
Right.
and that happens in a couple of
That's
months.
what you mean.
But
And
I
I
tend
mean,
to
I don't
agree
know
with
what
the
the
state in
reason
this
I
case.
I'd
Well,
rather-
their way, if you read the bill, it's very simple. It's that a manufactured home will be allowed on any single family residential lot. And currently in Foster, that's the way we have it. Because despite what's on the books, we've permitted manufactured homes.
Yeah.
So that means we allow them in any zoning district, which we allowed them, which is probably only the AR, but that's 97% of the town.
True.
So Grant, now when you're saying we've permitted, because mobile homes, trailers were prohibited after 1974. Now we're
Mhm.
saying
71.
manufactured homes. So manufactured homes are formerly known as trailers, or we have, it seems like we commingle the terms
That's right.
modular
Yeah,
home
yeah,
and
so we're saying now.
manufactured home, but
Mhm.
they're two completely different things. I have one of each. I have a modular home across the street. And that's valued at 500,000.
Mhm.
I have a now manufactured home next door, and that's at like 236,000. There's a
Yeah.
big difference. They both sit on 5 acres of land.
Okay.
But so this is where it's kind of confusing to me, because we eliminated trailer unless it's a temporary, if somebody's house
Sure.
burns
Yeah.
down,
Right.
right?
That's the way it
And
remains.
then mobile home, I think we've eliminated completely, right?
The state building code has eliminated that so far.
Yeah, we're rid of that. So now we have manufactured and modular,
Mhm.
which I was under the understanding before that manufactured was the new name for a mobile home,
Well, no, it
and
needs to have a
modular.
foundation.
huh?
It needs to have a foundation. It can't be mobile.
So they are one and the same then. A
Mhm.
modular, like my house across the street, was brought in 2 big pieces and it was put on a foundation and it was done. My one next door was towed in. It's not on a foundation, it's a slab, which was acceptable back then. So they're both considered manufactured and only one is considered modular and manufactured.
So anything that's constructed off-site in a factory that gets transported on-site, whether it's put into pieces on-site or just dropped and installed on a slab, a foundation, any legal foundation on-site, that's a manufactured home. It would be difficult to go against the state building code's definition of what a manufactured home is to create our own separate definition for a modular home. It's possible, potentially, and this is where a solicitor would really need to get involved. It could be possible to write into our zoning code a definition for a modular home and a definition for a manufactured, but you are not, no municipality is allowed to create a zoning code that differs from, or sorry, they're not allowed to create a building code that differs from the state building code. The zoning code takes precedence. It supersedes the building code in relation to location, use, and type. So before I knew that manufactured homes is defined, had to have a foundation, my thought was, well, in Foster, we should prohibit the type without a foundation, say there's no zoning district for it, so prohibit it by location, it supersedes the building code, and only allow the type that have a foundation. Then I learned that they all need to have a foundation, so it would make sense to continue what the town has done, setting the precedent, allowing manufactured homes. It's just kind of tricky because a modular home is, by the building code definition, a manufactured home.
Yeah, I think the real tough part's gonna be, Grant, and to what Chris was talking about, and everybody's making perfect sense. I think what's gonna happen is what the states, what the state has given us to deal with is that we have to actually look at refusing certain value manufactured homes. So if it's not of, we'd have to draw up on a suitable baseline requirement that it has to be so nice, so expensive, so big, and whatever, because the state's saying any.
You want to get into that?
No,
I
I
don't think,
don't.
and I don't
We
think you
have-
can.
We would have to, what I'm being,
Okay.
I'm saying you have to do that. Because if
Yeah.
the state says manufacturing a home off-site and putting it on a foundation is now legal within the state, and they're asking us all to comply, we would have to come up with a way to exclude a certain value style pre-built home. And I don't know if we can do that.
I don't think we can, and design standards on a manufactured home don't seem to make much sense because they're manufactured offsite. What are you gonna tell them to do it a
I've
certain
only
way,
been here
right?
for 12, 11 years, but I don't think we've ever done it.
No.
We've never refused people how much they're gonna build.
Yeah, and I think that really, the manufactured homes being allowed on any single family lot, I don't think it would devalue properties to the level that
We
it's
need
being
to have
discussed
one
right now.
conversation going on at a time, please. Thank you.
I don't think it would devalue neighboring properties to the level that we think. I don't necessarily understand why that argument's brought up, but
Well,
screening is so
that's
heavily
just
opposed on Route 6.
But Grant, the argument's being brought up because it's a matter of
Mhm.
opinion and it needs to be fleshed out and heard.
Yeah,
and
I get it.
Whether some people don't agree with it, the fact of the matter is we have to work through this.
Yeah, I just wish there was more talk about property values being devalued when we were talking about open lot storage screening on Route
Okay.
6.
Good enough.
But
I'd like to move the question. I think
Yeah.
we have discussed it at all ends.
Voting on this.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. I appreciate that. It will be on the next. agenda.
yeah, well.
Hallelujah.
Then we'll-
That's the only one I'll be
But I'm
here
gonna cut
for
it
the next
short
time,
next time.
unless any of these
Well, I
get
do
voted
think it
down.
was a
No,
good
it is,
conversation.
it is, but we've started
we
to
have to-
repeat
right,
ourselves
right,
over and over
right.
again.
Yeah, Grant, that was a very important statement you made. Go ahead.
Say it again.
I heard.
I'm jumping to conclusions here, but if the rest of the ordinances are approved or denied, not continued, then there will only be one ordinance at the next meeting. It'll be the one we just discussed.
You can have pizza.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the second hearing, which is the homestead. Are you doing that or is
Who's doing it?
you're doing it? That would be you.
What do we have to do?
Well, you have to present what,
That's a dirty microphone.
Talk about, we can talk about it, but we have to read it.
no, you just have to tell us what, give us.
Okay,
a summary.
so-
What is it?
The homestead exemption
There's a-
is an ordinance that will allow us to take the assessed values and give people who live in the home that they own a reduced assessed value for taxation. So currently, we're looking at 25 and 35%. Again, the reason that this came up, we've talked about this several times so far. The reason that this came up originally, because when we thought of this reval, which is required by law, I panicked because I understood the situation with our property tax, with our property values here. I understood because I work in the town hall, the sale prices of the current sale prices of homes. And I also understood that we have a treaty with Providence Water that has locked in their assessed value. And by locking in their assessed value, when you drop your rate, as you so often do, when your valuations go up, they were poised to have a pretty hefty reduction in their fee. So that fee will then be turned over to everybody else because we're still trying to raise the same amount of money. And to avoid that, we started looking at the homestead exemption. That said, now that the property values have all been established and people are now filing their appeals, it has been determined, because I couldn't quite understand why. I understood the property valuations increasing to the level that they had based on the sales we've recently seen in Foster. But I couldn't understand why the rate didn't decrease even further. And what we established is that the property values for commercial property did not increase at the level that the property values residential property. As such, what happened is with the reduction in the rate, if their rates didn't go up, say everybody's rate went up an average of 37% per the reval company. Statistically, that was a rate. Not everybody went up 37%. Obviously, people varied, but there was an average of 37%. So if that's the case, and commercial property only increased 10 or 15%, they will actually see a reduction in the amount due. And that will be borne by an additional increase by the property, the residential property. This homestead exemption is meant to bring the values down for people who live in the property, reallocate and reappropriate the amount due. It will increase the tax rate and it'll be more equitable across the board. And residential property. It's necessary actually in this particular year.
And I, again, failed to open this public hearing.
Sorry.
So that's, it's up there.
Okay.
Yep, it's there. And so the only thing that I would ask is that I thought the last time we talked about it, that it's not 4 dwelling units.
It's 2.
It's 2.
So the one that he has is different from the one that
One that we have in Sugar City.
is still 4, but the
It's
one
still
that we're
4.
passing is 2.
Okay,
All right, so
That's
that has
all
to
I
be
was-
changed. I don't know why.
So
That's
okay.
actually still linked in here.
okay. So is anyone in the general public that would have any questions regarding this?
Thank you for noticing that. Yes.
Anyone in the public that would like to ask questions about it? Could you come forward and state your name, address? The microphone is on, I believe. So you're all set.
It's Robert Morrow, 157 Central Place. I just want a clarification on the proposal. What do you mean by dwelling units? What's the definition of dwelling units?
That would be
I don't
better.
understand.
That would be better answered by Grant.
It would be whatever is in the.
Could you stand up, Grant? Thank you.
Whatever's in the applicable state code's definition of a dwelling unit, whether that be the building code, I think it would be the building code.
Mhm.
That's how a dwelling unit would be defined. It's something along the lines of an area that has sleeping, cooking
Quarters, mhm.
and bathroom facilities.
For example, like an in-law apartment or something like that.
That would be the second one.
That would be the second
Second
one.
one.
So
Fine.
How about an auxiliary house or?
if that's the second one
One.
and you don't already have a second one within your home, I would believe that
Okay.
would be true, right?
All right,
Yeah, that's why I think West Greenwich had 4 dwelling units in theirs, which we based our proposal off of.
Correct.
So
And I
2
figured that
would
an
cover-
accessory unit or a multifamily up to 2 would be appropriate, but 4 would be kind of deviating from the intent of the exemption.
So we don't have, in town, we don't technically have duplexes, but we have a main house and like an in-law.
There's some that are duplex, there's not many, but there are some that are
They're
2
considered
units.
duplexes.
Yeah, 2 or
Yes.
3 in the same. There's one on Danielson Pike, but
Mhm.
yeah, for the most part, they're accessory. It's on one lot that existed prior to zoning.
Right, and Grant touched on the intent of the ordinance itself, which we weren't intending to have properties that had, say, 5 or 6, and
Mhm.
that was never our intent, and that's not Foster's intent. So we did decrease that 4 to 2. But other than that, we also worked today with the application process that will go along with this. You have
Okay.
the application in front of you. We can talk about that, right? And we try to vet all of the different scenarios. It's working several years now with tax freezes and the credits. What are all of the different types of situations that will come up in Foster? So we wanted to make sure that everything was covered across the board. I supplied the actual law that allows us to do this ordinance to Julia. I gave her the ordinance itself and our application to make sure all 3 documents are aligned, and it does appear that they are. We tried to address trusts.
Which I did. I have a suggested addition to this ordinance. adding a different subsection B, so dropping qualified property defined down lower and doing owner occupied defined. For purposes of this section, the term owner occupied residence includes 1, a qualifying property which the legal owner resides. 2, a qualifying property in which the applicant resides and has a life estate. Or 3, a qualifying property in which the applicant resides that is held in trust solely for estate planning purposes as evidenced by affidavit, and I have drafted an affidavit. So that we can have a form they would have to fill out, it's not
Right.
under penalties of
So
perjury.
that would be amending this form.
Nope, so it's a supplemental affidavit that they would
Okay.
get, if the property is held in trust, they would get that affidavit as well. To say this is solely done for estate planning purposes.
Right.
So
That's
it
why
would
it was-
amend the ordinance.
It would add, yeah, so
It would
it's
add.
like,
Yes.
I know we have the version that has 2, but the one that was advertised had 4 dwelling units, so when you vote on it, you'll have to just vote to say for 2 dwelling units, and then you can add the
Yes.
owner occupied definition.
And we
If
will
you
be
so
voting
choose.
tonight.
I would
Yeah,
like
so
you to,
do you
yes.
think-
I didn't ask it.
Okay, sorry, I know we've gotten.
So to be,
Mr. Moreau.
to be
asked.
clear, I think that that fully addresses all of the different situations. We have trusts. There are LLCs, they would not, that's more of a business type of thing.
Mhm.
And but we do have several properties. That's why we wanted to add that today, because we looked at all the different properties. We have quite a few properties that are in trust, but the trustee actually does reside in the home. And without this language, they would not be eligible for this. And as you could imagine, based on all your reassessments and whatever, that would impact them pretty significantly. So this was sorry for the last minute ad, but we wanted to
No,
make
I
sure
think that's
we fully
appropriate.
covered as many people as we could.
I'd rather have it now than.
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else in the public that would like to ask any questions or have any comments? This is our second hearing. The council may vote on it tonight. So I will do my 3 and 3. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Hearing none, I'm closing the public hearing and I'm opening up to the council. Council, do you have any questions?
I do. What does this look like in like timeframe before our financial town meeting or the next fiscal year?
Okay, so we've done a lot of research and a lot of work. We actually had meetings most of this week with so many people. And what we've determined is this, we will not have a tax rate. Sometimes we're going with the projected tax rate right now because until we have any other document, that's what we're going with. We already printed the labels for this application. I'm going to modify it slightly, but I think that that application is pretty much set now. We are going to be blast emailing it out to all of our website on Monday afternoon. The application will be available at town hall that day. We are going to do a mailer, a full mailer throughout the entire town. I'm funding it through our budget, so before anybody asks. And it will go to every resident, less the tax freeze because and vacant land.
They're not.
Owners of vacant land will not receive it. People on the tax freeze will not receive it.
The tax freeze is different.
Tax
than
freeze is different than the
Some
credit.
exemption.
Anyone who receives a credit or any other resident who may be eligible, it's up to them now at that point to determine eligibility. They will get it, they will get this form delivered to their home. We will have, I talked to our staff and we are going to extend office hours at the town hall to assist people 3 days. So with this application will also go a letter explaining all of this. 3, I think 2 Wednesdays and a Tuesday. I already picked the dates. Town hall hours, we're gonna restate the town hall hours. We're gonna have personnel available before, as long as Bob Boyden, because he runs that meeting, the town, financial town meeting. We're gonna have personnel there who, if anybody wants to supply their documents or needs assistance to help with that, we will hand it out. We'll have forms there available
At
as
the
well
financial town
at the financial town meeting, if our moderator allows.
meeting?
I have to talk to him. It's his meeting. And we will stay after the meeting as well, if people will break obviously for the meeting. That's the 7th. We're gonna have extended town hall hours. We'll be open till 7:30 at night on May 16th, May 22nd, and May 29th. And we're going to open on 2 Saturdays, May 4th and May 18th from 9 to 12. That pretty much covers your entire working class, whoever says that they can't attend at whatever point. I can't accommodate people who left town for the month of May. It's legitimately all I can do. The one thing that we won't do is the date is May 30th. That's a drop dead date for application. And we're going to honor it simply because what we'll end up doing is once the role is certified, you're going to end up being inundated with abatements, and that doesn't help our financial status at all.
Can I-
So
Can I just make one request if possible? When you're done and ready to send this out, could you shoot us as maybe us 5
Mhm.
an email with the dates and some of the information?
Yes.
Because I'm gonna get asked.
all of this will actually be with the application itself.
Okay.
So you'll receive it as a mail, but of course I will.
That
Yep.
way I can answer questions.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get a ton.
Kelly, can you add a sentence to that application that says deadline will not be extended? Put it in bold. all
It's
caps.
in there, but I will bold it. It's in there actually a few times, in fact, but I will bold it because we have to, because at that point we have to start putting all the data in. They still have to run through all of the numbers, and this is a heavy lift, to be clear. This is a very heavy lift. We expect most people will apply for it. And with the farm forest property, you have to analyze their property separately because they're already being assessed as one account. So they already have an assessment for their farm forest property and the rest. So some of those have to be manually done. And there's no mass adjustment that's going to put this in our system. We're going to pretty much have to go individually. We have the tax collector's going to assist, the assessor's going to assist, the assessor clerk is going to assist, I'm going to assist to make sure that this all works smoothly. So that's the best we can do. I know it's a tight squeeze, but we didn't have it. This is a very short time to create such a significant change. And I'm actually pretty excited that we're able to do it because it would have been pretty catastrophic to many, many people without it.
For sure.
So what's the pleasure of the council?
I would make a motion, but I'm not exactly sure how to make it because
Do you have, like something that you could reread that, or do you have a
And-
hard copy of that?
I have the ordinance in front of us, but we're changing it. So
Yeah, so it can be a motion to approve the homestead exemption ordinance. As presented with the 2 changes, that 1, it be 2 dwelling units opposed to 4 dwelling units. And that the owner occupied definition as read during the second public hearing be included.
Can we do so moved? May we do so moved? That's not after.
Did you get
I'll make.
Did you write that down?
All right,
No, she did
Michaela,
not.
I'll make a motion.
Michaela's
Never mind.
making it.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance number 34-34. An ordinance and amendment to the taxation code of the town of Foster as presented with the revision of 4 dwelling
To 2?
to 2 dwellings. And the owner occupied status as presented in the meeting.
Definition.
A definition,
Second.
status, definition.
Discussion.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
I
This is
understand the
a
premise to this.
Huge undertaking.
Yes.
Of the whole finance and town
Really
clerk
good
staff,
idea.
so I'm
All
very,
right, I
Really
want
good
to
idea.
thank them all
Absolutely.
for the input and the time that's going to take now.
you didn't vote yet.
No, you did not vote
Okay.
yet, but
We're going
we're
to.
going to. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right, so to be clear, can you please forward me that change language, the revised language? And,
I added property health trust.
okay, great. And then the second thing is, to be clear, the ordinance has a limit of up to 40%. If by any point the state law changes, obviously we'll have to adhere to that. But we believe by doing this today that we're actually grandfathered in because it does look like they might be changing it to 20%, but it won't impact us.
So it
Correct.
does say that in the ordinance that's presented.
Yes.
Before.
So that 20% cap, it did pass the House, but it was referred to Senate Finance over 2 months, like 2.5 months ago. So it's still kind of sitting there.
So hopefully
So it hasn't.
we're,
passed yet.
we're not, but we're looking at I just want to reiterate this, 20 to 35%, even though you have the ability up to 40 and you're going to have to vote because that's your decision. Again, in the next, probably either May 7th, May 9th, or the meeting right after, right before we start.
Okay.
We'll make the suggested percentage and you're gonna have to vote on that again. The rate itself, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to the second hearing. I am going to open this hearing. And Grant, go ahead.
Okay, so the first section, 6-51, we're not moving forward with any edits on that section. At the last meeting, I thought it would make sense to base event licenses for open recreation events and amusements on the number of people expected to attend an event, but that was not a popular proposal. So the following sections will have amendments proposed. The first section, 6-51, is proposed to remain the same, and it's pretty short, so I could read it. It shall be unlawful to conduct or operate a recreational event or amusement within the town, which is open to the general public, where a fee is charged without having first obtained a license therefore from the town council.
Anyone have any questions in regards to that? You need to come on up, I know. Sorry. You haven't been around lately. This is the new and improved town council meeting.
My question on this is.
Can you state your name and address?
Yes, it's Robert Morrow, 157 Central Park.
Thank you.
Is this section 6-51, this is already pre-existing? You already have. My big question is how has the town been enforcing that?
How,
Well, there are many events throughout the town which there are charges, recreational events and amusement events, and throughout the town, between clubs, private entities, and things of that nature, we charge.
those were, we had excluded those, am I correct?
Yes.
In that,
Not necessarily on town property, I'm talking.
no, we excluded, we gave them exemptions, if you will.
This is, keep asking about the existing ordinance, because this is an ordinance that's changing. I think the short answer is,
It's never been.
So since it's never been enforced, my next question is then why are we going forward with this at all?
Because I can answer that.
Go ahead, Grant, come, if you need it, thank you.
that's what I hear.
So the reason we're moving forward with this is because there are certain sections that are not necessarily sensible. Like the following section, ask somebody who wants to have an event, if that event is not a permitted use, to go in front of the zoning board to obtain a special use permit, the necessary relief to hold an event. But the zoning board doesn't hear short-term events, and a short-term event shouldn't be held to the same standard as a long-term event. So to clean up the code and bring things into a more standard practice is the reason why we're moving forward with this, and maybe it would make sense to enforce it where appropriate.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Morrow?
Not really. I understand the.
I need you to come up again. I'm sorry. You don't have to state your name and address.
Just make sure you speak into the microphone.
Yes, I can understand that the need to eliminate where the zoning board would have to review each and every one of those. But none has ever come before the zoning board that I'm ever aware of.
No, I agree.
So I don't have a problem with eliminating that particular thing, but charging an event license for each and every event within the town, again, what is the purpose of that? If we never have enforced charging a fee requiring anyone to get an event license throughout the entire town that I can ever remember. And they are still going on within the town events on a regular basis. What is the purpose?
That's right.
You have to pay for your event. You have to get a license for your event. For
They
the-
have to
for the
pay the
horses.
fee,
You have to pay a fee.
The
Right,
food trucks do
because I
too.
use
The food
the,
trucks do.
Did you use the grounds?
I use the ground.
Right, that's understandable, but private events. I mean, this basically addresses.
I
other
mean, at
events.
somebody's house
yeah,
that
but
has a.
Not only at a
party
house, how about at a club, at clubs
Mm.
and other
It
things
is,
throughout this?
it is,
Not-
ours is a private event.
Because it's a private event, but it's on town property. So you pay
Well,
a fee for the
Oh,
town
well,
property.
you visit the town property
Right,
for parking.
right. So you have to pay for that.
But we're not even talking
But you're not,
just on
you're
town.
not
property.
charged a particular fee just because you're having your event. You get charged because you're using that as a parking lot. You never get charged for the
I
event.
have to
itself.
pay for the use of the field.
Right, but you never have to
But
pay
you're
for the
talking
event.
about, you're asking, a
Mhm.
gun club has a,
Gun club. any other club.
game dinner.
Right.
And they charge.
Exactly.
We have never
No,
done that.
never.
We've never. Brent, go ahead. And then Julia.
It's important to note the text in the existing ordinance. It's unlawful to conduct or operate a recreational event or amusement within the town. This is the important part, which is open to the general public where a fee is charged. So if there is any kind of invitation, if it's on private property and you don't just let anybody in, I don't believe that you need to have an event license. You don't need to apply for one.
So. Julia, go ahead, and then I'll ask the question.
I also think the game dinner, you're paying for the plate, you're not paying for the entry, you're paying for the. I
Right.
think that. might be
Okay.
it. But, I do want to point out that we're not doing anything with this ordinance. At all. They just said we're not moving forward on it.
Oh,
We're
okay.
not making any.
We're not
changes.
doing anything.
Okay.
It's just leaving it the way that it is. I don't want us to. get bogged
We're
down in-
leaving it the way it is, but we haven't enforced it.
So,
understand that they're
so it could be about, go ahead, Bob.
Why are we discussing it?
Right.
Because there were originally proposed changes in that ad, but then they withdrew those proposed changes.
Right.
So it's on there because they were all advertised together, but they're not actually hearing any
Well-
changes anymore.
I can understand that but the ordinance sort of exists and it has never been enforced. We have a lot of ordinances that in this town that have never been enforced. Why do we keep them on the books?
Well, I think Grant has been trying to do a really good job on trying to.
Great job. on that bit and getting rid of some of them. I happen to believe that this is one ordinance
That should be.
eliminated as well.
So we'll take note of that. Thank you.
And that was gonna be my next point was that it is an option to simply remove the entire section, but most towns do have a procedure for event licensing. And I thought that an appropriate measure would be to clean up the way that we have this written, even if it gets enforced or if it doesn't, but I'm not totally opposed to a removal of the section either, but I'll just continue to present it the way it is because
Okay.
I think it makes sense the way that the next handful of sections are presented. I think it cleans things up on the books.
Julia, is there any legal obligation we would have to maintain this? Even if we're not enforcing it? Does it cover us in some way or does it?
Liability wise, I don't think there's it because these are events on private property not held by the town. I don't think the town would be on the hook. It's a case by case basis, but at first blush, I don't think the town would be on the hook. But if you were interested in vetting a more I don't want to say substantial, but a more detailed version of this ordinance, you could look at Richmond because they have the Washington County Fair, and I know that the fair requires, they have an event type event licensing type situation. That might.
So maybe I thought Denise was gonna steal my question, but I'm not sure now. I was thinking, is it not proper for us to randomly and leave this on the books and randomly enforce it?
Oh,
Yeah.
There's some,
Yeah.
there's some sections that will be coming up that give people options to have requirements to be heard for an event license and to go through the whole procedure. There's provisions to waive those requirements that you'll hear in a little while. So the intent of the way I've drafted this after the first hearing is to not unintentionally hold certain groups or clubs to a higher standard than others if they wanted to do something that was open to the general public and where a fee's charged. So basically there are, the approach I took is to remove as many here and there kind of nitpicky license requests and allow people to not have to go in front of the board for a hearing by either not charging a fee or having an invite list or doing things like not charging an admission fee, like Julia said, paying per plate. And if events are on town property, potentially waiving a hearing and just having the council issue conditions for that person. But
Thank you.
we'll hear, that'll be further explained as the next sections get
so we need to be patient.
presented.
I will be patient. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mentioned briefly section 6-52. Currently what's on the books is relief from zoning board of review required prior to acceptance of application. And the section says that if there's a proposed event that is not permitted as a use by right under the zoning ordinance, then the applicant would need to apply for the necessary relief, which would really just be a special use permit to the zoning board before the license application shall be accepted. And I don't think that's appropriate because a short-term event shouldn't be held to the same standards as a long-term land use.
I would also like to point out that per this long established case law, special use permits run with the land.
Yeah.
They don't have sunset provisions. So as soon as there's a special use permit for a piece of property, it exists forever unless the law changes. So
Yeah.
short-term special use permits don't really exist anyway.
Thank you. Go ahead, Grant.
So section 6-54 is titled Notice to Owners of Meeting. And currently 1 week's notice is required to be provided. The amendment here is to increase that to 2 weeks' notice. And the owners to be notified would remain at 300 feet. That's the way it's written currently. 300 feet of the perimeter of the subject property. Adding in a provision that proof of mailing would need to be required at the meeting. And currently the ordinance says that the application and time and location of the meeting should be advertised in a newspaper of general circulation. The proposal is to make that a shall statement, so you can't pick and choose. Everybody would be treated equally who needs to apply for one of these licenses. And the applicant would be responsible for the cost of advertising and notice to abutters. That is being added. It's not clear in the ordinance currently. It's not stated. And then a subsection B and C are proposed for reoccurring special events with no change in request from the previous year, or we could say the previous time the event was held. The town council by a majority vote shall have the authority to waive the current year's public hearing or the current public hearing and all associated notices if no complaints, issues, or questions have been presented to the town council as a result of the previous event. And for events that are proposed to be located on town-owned property, the town council by a majority vote could have the authority to waive the public hearing and all associated notices. So they would still have to review the application. They just wouldn't need to have an entire hearing on it. And again, there's a number of ways where you wouldn't even need to come forward for an event license too.
Any questions? Mr. Moreau?
Yeah, comments.
Yeah, Robert Morrow, 157.
Can you pull the microphone
I'm
closer?
sorry, Robert
Yep.
Morrow, 157 Central Pike. I can understand the process you have here. You're creating a process so that any event within town, even on private property, would require notice and this thing. Some of our clubs, you're making them jump through hoops in order to have things. The clubs in this town, my gun club, her gun club, Adam, we donate to the town. We give food money to the food banks.
Mhm.
We provide recreation for the Boy Scouts.
Mhm.
You're asking us now to. My club has an annual monthly event. Every month, we have a steak dinner. We've had it for years. In fact, the entire DPW shows up every month. So we would be required to notify the town council and to jump through all these hoops just to have our regular steak dinner.
Are they paying for a meal or are they
They're
paying?
paying for a meal. They
Your
cook their own steak.
Yeah, no, it's paid for admission, I believe.
Yeah, for admission, you come in.
Well, no, it's the game dinner. I see your hand, Grant. I will recognize you in a moment.
You pay for the meal.
Right,
You
so
don't
it doesn't apply to you.
to pay
It's
for the
not-
meal.
It's
Doesn't
not,
apply.
it's not an entrance fee.
Only an entrance fee.
So if it was benefits, we do.
That'll be different.
But interesting. We have events though, shooting events, that is an entrance fee.
Okay.
We have to jump through these hoops to have those.
Grant, you've been chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
The way the ordinance is currently written. If you are keeping these events at clubs, if you're saying anybody can show up to these events and you charge an entrance fee, then you would already have to comply with what is being proposed. Because at the previous meeting, we heard that it was unpopular to change the nature of who has to apply for the event. The initial proposal was based on the number of people to attend, not simply charging a fee and having it open to the general public. That was not popular, so the response was to keep who is required to obtain one of these licenses the same. So it could be on the books that whatever these gun clubs have done, they are supposed to come in front of the council already, and it's just not enforced, or depending on the way that the events are run, there are ample ways to not have to come in front of the council. Simply say that it's not open to just anybody, or say that you're not charging an entrance fee and you would not have to go in front of the council for anything.
So
So
Would that be like if they, say,
it's not,
I'm trying.
Yeah.
If it was like a shooting thing and people are coming in and they're not paying an entrance fee, but they're paying for their supplies, the clay pigeons, the whatever. So then they wouldn't, if they were paying for supplies, but not paying a door fee to walk in the door,
Like $5.
That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
And
like no cover charge.
yes,
So I already heard Patty say it, it's a donation,
So if we split it as a donation.
not an admission fee.
Instead of it, basically, it's fine.
yeah, or you hold it once and you have to go through the process, and then after that, they waive you every single time. I mean,
I understand that too, but my question again is then if that's the case, then if we just put forward a donation, it's an entrance. Why are we going through this?
For anybody else that does it other than the gun
Well,
club?
because we had it, so he's updating it and he's
Yeah, but
decided what
it
to
was
do.
on the books already, Bob.
I know, but it was never used.
that doesn't mean that it wasn't there.
yeah,
Why was it? It's.
So why is it being brought to the forefront again?
Why would you have enough books? At one time, this town had an ordinance that anybody over the age of 12 had to carry a firearm if they moved around town. That's not on the books anymore because it's out, that's ridiculous.
yeah, I mean,
So why would you take this law?
because most towns have event licensing procedures. Okay, so then I'm not against removing it either, but I do think that if it's on the books, then we should have it read in a sensible manner. Things like, yeah, not
I
having
want to bring back
short-term
the
special use
12-year-old
permits.
carrying the gun rule.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring it forward at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Okay. Continue, Grant.
Okay, so section
He is
6-55, currently titled notice to chief of police and building inspector of meeting purpose. So the proposal here is to eliminate the building official from the notice and event licensing process and replace the building official with the respective fire chief of the area in town where the event's proposed to be held. So the proposal here is to remove the existing text, which says the town clerk shall also give similar notice to the chief of police and building inspector at least 1 week prior to the meeting, so that the application and provisions set forth in section 652 can be reviewed. The proposed text to be added is at least 2 weeks prior to the public hearing, being consistent with the last section. All complete applications will be forwarded to the town, will be forwarded by the town clerk to the police chief and the fire chief of the respective fire company based on the event's proposed location for their consideration. All recommendations and or comments will be forwarded to the town council prior to the public hearing. If the town council determines that a police and or fire detail shall be a stipulation of the license, the applicant shall be responsible for said detail fees.
Grant, is that going on to section 6-56, or is that
Just-
also included in there?
Just section 6-55 was
Alright.
read.
All right.
Questions on that one? Name and address, thank you. It moves.
Bend it.
It bends.
Looks like this.
There you go.
Patty Morrell, Central Pike. I have a question that you confused me with this. Does this mean that they'd have to have a police or a fire detail?
Only if the police chief or fire official thinks it's necessary.
Okay, so you'd have to ask them first, how many people are there and,
Yes, the application would be submitted to the town clerk.
okay.
Sorry, I just said that thing, just like
Okay.
I'm sure.
So the application would be filed to the town clerk. The town clerk would forward the application to the police chief and the fire chief. And the police chief and fire chief would make comments. And if those comments include a detail, then that would need to be required. If not, then there would be no detail required.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Grant.
Section 6-56 fees. This is the current text. Each applicant for a license to operate a recreational event or amusement shall pay the town clerk upon filing the application a license fee of $25 plus the cost of mail and advertising. The proposal here is to strike the word license, so it's just a fee, meaning it's an application fee rather than saying you'd automatically get the license. And any additional fee, this is text to be added at the very end, any additional fee specified in this division shall be paid prior to the date on which the event or amusement is proposed to be held. So the additional fees refer to things like a possible detail fee.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Grant.
And section 6-57, review of application, approval or approval with conditions. This is just stating that the application could be denied. And if the applications are approved with conditions, those conditions would need to be complied with when the event was held. And the town council shall not consider an application for the issuance of a license. Strike out before the building official, enter before the police chief and fire chief of the respective fire company have reviewed the application as evidenced by their signatures on the application checklist. So town clerk would forward to the police and fire chiefs and they would sign off on it and add any comments and conditions they think are necessary.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Section 16-31, this is into the mobile homes and house trailer section. So the definition, this should be pretty straightforward. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Definitions, we want to define a house trailer to be any temporary structure with or without a permanent foundation that's used as a temporary residence following an unexpected event. Manufactured home, the definition would be the same as it is in the state building code. Mobile home, the definition would be any structure meeting the definition of a manufactured home herein, not having a permanent foundation, and that was built prior to June 15th, 1976. There are HUD regulations that changed on that date. So anything before there that doesn't, before that date that doesn't have a foundation is a mobile home. Anything afterwards is a manufactured home, and the state building code does not allow manufactured homes that don't have a foundation.
We're not open to the council yet. Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, go ahead.
So the next section, 16-57, procedure for applying for an installation permit for manufactured home. We have a bunch of criteria in Foster's code that could be seen as creating another building code. So the proposal here is to write that an application for an installation permit for a manufactured home needs to follow the procedures as set forth in the 1 and 2 family residential code.
Questions from the audience? Hearing none, go ahead, Grant.
The same concept in the next section, 16-58, standards to govern issuance of an installation permit for a manufactured home. No installation permit shall be issued unless the standards found in the 1 and 2 family residential code are met, and remove all of the extra language that doesn't appear in the state building code, and enter in a final sentence that says installation permits for manufactured homes shall follow the procedures in the 1 and 2 family residential code.
Any questions on that? Go ahead, Grant.
The next section is 16-59. It's titled Hearing on Issuance of Installation Permit, Issuance or Denial of Permit. There's no hearing required in the state building code, so the section's proposed to be removed.
Any questions on that? Okay, Grant.
Section 1660, temporary permits, add in to the title, temporary permits following damage. Currently, it says the council can issue a temporary permit for a house trailer after some kind of disaster happened, but the building code says that the building official is the one to issue that temporary permit. And rather than the 1 and 2 family residential code, the state building code covers temporary structures. So there's a procedure for any temporary structures which are to be occupied, to be permitted. And the building official is the one who handles that. And they can only, a temporary structure could only be in place for 1 year after its issuance, and that can't be extended or renewed. And then upon expiration of that temporary permit, or termination of the temporary permit by the building official, which is permitted in the building code, the house trailer must be removed or demolished as determined by the building official.
Questions? Go ahead, Grant.
Section 38.2 is the definition section of the zoning code, and the same definitions from section 16-31 are proposed to be entered into the zoning code.
There were no questions for the previous, so I'm assuming there's none for now. Go ahead.
Section 38-272 is currently titled yard exceptions. I think it really should be titled setback exceptions. The text reads, the space in a required front, side, or rear yard shall be open and unobstructed with the following exceptions. The text required front, side, or rear yard seems to mean the required area to be not built on, or a setback. So this could be interpreted to mean that you actually can't put anything except for a structure in your yard. So it's a pretty simple proposal. Replace the word yard everywhere with the word setback. So then the exceptions would be a porch can extend up to 10 feet into a setback. Projections of windowsills, cornices, other ornamental features can extend up to 5 feet into any setback. Landscape features, trees, shrubs, terraces can be placed in any setback. Fences need to be 5 feet away from the road line. And then my favorite, the telephone booth. In the general business and highway commercial districts, an outdoor telephone booth can be located in the front setback, provided it is adjacent to a permitted parking area. Yeah, so you could put one in a setback, but yeah, really just remove the word yard, replace it with setback.
Any questions on that one? Hearing none, I'm going to do my 3 and 3. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of any of these ordinances? Anyone that would like to speak in favor of any of these ordinances? Anyone that would like to speak in favor of any of these ordinances? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition to any of these ordinances? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition to these ordinances? You've already made your. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing no further discussion, I will close this public hearing and open it to the council. It is the second hearing. We may vote on these. What is the pleasure of the council? Do you have any questions, any concerns that you would like to bring forward?
Thank you for the hard work, Grant.
Yes.
Michaela thought a phone booth was the original mobile phone.
If nobody has a question, I do.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Moreau brought up some important facts, some important, I don't know whether it, do we need them? Is there a legal benefit for us to have these? They're not enforced.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, they're not enforced. I never knew they existed. Uh,
The fee.
The council's supposed to be the one to give the licenses in our table of uses. We brought it up at the farmer's market last year.
yes.
Yeah, no, but they're never enforced. I
They,
understand.
but they never enforced. I mean, I never knew that it existed.
So, yeah, so I think that was my original point. What do you think, Grant? Like, is this open the door for spot enforcement?
No,
Random
no,
enforcement?
the way I wrote it was to give people options to not have to come in front of the council for
Yeah.
an event license. It's kind of hard, the way it's written, it's kind of hard to mess up and have to come in front of the council because you'd have to have it open to everybody. You'd have to charge a fee, and then you would have to be doing it on private property, and if it's reoccurring, you could also have it waived. If it's on town property, you could have it waived. But if we don't enforce this currently and we want to remove the whole section, that's fine too.
We
I
understand.
just think that most towns have some kind of
Yeah.
procedure, but if we
we
don't
do
enforce
have
it, we
with
don't.
Most towns.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that that's a good thing, certain areas where that's not a good thing, but not having any procedure for event licenses is not the end of the world if it's not enforced currently and people do what
I
they
mean,
do.
there's
That's
certain
fine.
events that we do require licenses for.
Is that event
It's made-
mass gathering?
Yeah, but those fall under different
Yeah,
ordinances, so
that
those.
falls
have
under,
Okay.
yeah.
But I would like to point out, I just scrolled through this entire section. There's no like enforcement of chapter section. So I think that's why there hasn't been enforcement. There's no one who's been given the authority to, take reports on events that may or may not be having licenses or investigate those. There's none of that like there is with other licensing situations where there is an enforcement of the section. And it does require reports of the different department heads to, sign off on things. That's just not something that already exists in this section, which I think answers the, is it enforced question.
So I guess I need some clarification, and just for simplicity, I'm going to use, we're looking at for the second hearing, looking at numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as listed on the agenda.
Not one, they're not going forward. with
Yeah.
one.
All right, not one, then I thank you. So we're just looking at numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that correct? Is that what
Yes.
Yeah.
Looks like it.
The other ones
And-
are the ones that were voted on.
the other one, right? So, but the ones that we're in question about, I haven't even hit upon the others. I'm just looking at those event things. It'll be a second, part 2, if you will, on that. Because one of my questions would be, first of all, you got to get the police chief. Have you talked to fire chiefs that they'd have to go around and enforce this? So I
Well,
mean.
they wouldn't have to go around and enforce. They'd just be mailed a notice that there
That
would
it
be
was
some
happening.
event happening in their jurisdiction, and then they would weigh in. And currently, the fire chief is the building official in this process, the way it's written, but the police chief is currently supposed to be notified. Again, it's not enforced, but
Well, she would just go like find out the plan and say, oh, hey, we may have a traffic thing here. We're gonna need a detail. We're gonna need a cop to be here. So you're gonna have to pay for the cop to be here to direct traffic or just as a detail because it's going to be a large event or that kind of thing, right? That's all
Yeah.
And
her
we-
determination is.
So we've had events, I recall the bicycle race. We had the
Mhm.
bicycle race come through, and that was an event. We had some lady wanted to do the horse dance. Remember, she wanted to go do the horse trail, something or other. So they came before us.
Mhm.
That's different than what this is, or is it the same? And if we exclude all of this, what happens to those people? They just come in and
w-
willy-nilly?
was the event open to the general public and was a fee charged in those situations?
Yes.
Yes, so if we remove it, then yes, everyone comes in willy-nilly. They also might look at the section or look into our code and say, well, do they even allow events? And then they would have to call us because we wouldn't have any section that covers it. And I guess, go ahead, Julia.
If they're using town property, they would still need to come in.
Yeah.
So
Well,
as far
town
as
roads, town property?
Yeah,
technically.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. All right, because while we're sitting here, I was just thinking of those people.
You can
That
waive
had-
it. You
They
can waive
don't,
it.
they don't need to get permission from you to use town roads because they're public ways and they have public access. But things like if they want to use the fairgrounds or if they want to use the trails for something that's other than what it's typically used for, then likely they would be coming.
Road race.
There have been road
That
rages
we have
that have come
right,
through
right.
that have not notified us.
Right, because roads are public ways.
Okay, so they don't have to do anything for that. Okay,
Can't limit
Got it.
that one on a public site.
okay.
I'm not limiting it.
So I'll just make one comment. Do you realize how many bicyclists that we have on these roads?
I know, but I'm saying that they have a
They don't ask
race
permission.
that- I know, that's what I'm saying, but that one group came and asked us.
Right.
But there are many, I see them all the time,
Oh,
with
yeah.
their little numbers on and
Yeah,
they don't come to us.
No.
So,
No, I think that the one that you're talking about, Madam President, is they come through town. It's part of their route. They'll start, because I've done bike races myself, and they'll start in Coventry
Mhm.
and be like a 40 miler and they'll come
Right.
through. So they don't. But if there's a large amount, like your husband contacted me last year to let
Mhm.
me know where a bike race was going to start, where it was going to end,
mhm.
where there would be people en route, where they would have the water and the
That
snacks or
was,
whatever.
they were runners, they weren't.
They were runners,
bikers,
that's
yeah,
correct.
so
That, we don't want
let's-
to, no.
Not the
That's-
same. Oh, mhm.
So I was able to email my officers to let them know
Mhm.
what was going on. So any big event, it's just taken for granted that we know when the Foster Fair is. It's taken for granted when we know when Earth Day is or that big community yard sale. That's just kind of taken for granted that we know what it is, but it would be helpful if we received some, or if I received some sort of notification of any big event
Mhm.
that the town was having.
Okay,
And that way I could let the guys and gals know.
duly noted.
Thank you. You always do.
Okay.
She always does,
Okay.
but thank you.
Thank you. You need to come for, Danielle, you would need to come forward, state your name and address.
You have to do a counterclockwise pirouette.
I just want to just make sure.
State your name and
Oh,
address. Danielle.
Danielle Scott, 3 Ponegant Road, Foster.
Good.
Rec committee member. So I just want to make sure I understand. So do we have to have a proposal or does rec write something up and give it to the police department or give it to, how does that work? I just want to make sure we follow the right process. Because right now, Tammy just,
There isn't,
that's why I was
Go ahead.
asking. There isn't one. Because we do it anyway, but.
Right.
So.
Okay, Grant what?
Oh, and then, I don't know if I can ask this now or if it's too late, but the mailing of the letters. Instead of public hearing, right? Is that?
Oh, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Go ahead, Grant.
There is a procedure. There's supposed to be an application that can be produced. It says it in the zoning ordinance, open recreation event. Application or license to be produced by the town council. There is supposed to be some kind of form that they fill out. And there just isn't one. Again, it's.
So
The
glad it came here.
event permits, I think it's good to have some kind of procedure and make it very infrequent that anybody would need to apply for one. But
But then would we
removing the
be
requirement.
prejudiced by requiring some and not others?
Well, if there's no event, if there's no recreational event or amusement license, then how could you charge it at all? It would be, there is none. It's the same for everybody, and mobile food establishments are a different category.
Right, I get that, but I'm talking about the gun clubs, the church has their bingo,
What about
the
Vasta
Vasta Park.
So that's the purpose of having regulations, is you follow the regulations to avoid singling people out. So people can utilize these regulations to say, if I do this, I don't need to go in front of the council. Well, somebody didn't look into it and they did something, now they do have to go in front of the council. Or you say, there are no rules, and that way nobody could be treated differently than anybody unless you started making up your own rules.
Julia,
I think to effectively do that, you need an enforcement section, and
We
one
don't
just
have-
doesn't exist right now.
so keeping these on the books, it's still not being enforced because we don't have an enforcement
There's-
person.
Yes, and you could default it to somebody, but I think that makes it confusing if it changes by council who they default give it to, with that, who they assign the job, since the council, has the authority to assign, responsibilities to various department heads. So I think if you do an enforcement section, if this is something that you're interested in doing, is really vetting this section of ordinances, including an enforcement section, because then there's the reason why they should follow it, like when you commit a crime,
it
jail
validity.
is the reason why you don't want to continue to commit crime. A fine would be a reason why, similar to like a zoning violation or something like that.
Said that gives it, yeah, that would give it validity, right? My only,
It's a teeth.
it's a what?
Gives you teeth.
You can bite.
Yes, okay. Is it teeth? I like that. My only concern was when you mentioned, like letting the chief know about big events. I just think they should always be aware of the things that like that are going on in town, even if it's private and you're gonna block both sides of the roads and you're gonna have whatever,
Mhm.
just so that they're aware it's going on, they can just,
Right,
they're aware.
Okay, I'd just like to make a comment that I tried to, the first time this was heard, hone in on
remember, Grant.
the big events,
Yeah.
number of people
Yeah,
was
that-
overwhelmingly unpopular.
you're right. It wa-
And also, if we're saying it's on private property, it's not open to the general public, they're not charging a fee. If we're saying, oh, we should notify the chief of everything, well, we're going against what the rule is
Yeah.
currently too.
You're not gonna please us, Grant, let's just face it.
So,
It was the way
Again-
it was presented to me this time that it like clicked, like, maybe the chief should know some of these things or most of these things. Somebody should probably know.
I agree. I think it should be if event holder, whoever that may be, if the event holder fails to read the section on events and figure out the 4 different ways they can get around going in front of the council, then the chief should be made aware. But if people are smart and they know how to not even game the system, if they know how to say, okay, I'm exempt if I don't do X, Y, Z, or go back to A, there's 4 things. Then yeah, if they figure out a way to get around it, don't make them come in front of the council. They can't figure out a way to get around it. have the chief be notified or just do away with everything. I mean, I don't think it's a terribly important section.
Evidently it is.
Yeah. There's a few caveats with this, with the private property. We have no authority over private property unless there's a crime being committed or there's complaints about it. However, there have been several big things that some people have had in town. Memorials for people that have passed away, that they've had like a year anniversary. And the town, the owner of the home has actually contacted me to let me know that there's going to be a bunch of people and there's going to be cars on either side of the road. And I'll just have them drive by, but they don't have, we don't have
the
any
authority.
authority over private property unless there's some complaint we have to follow up on, or there's an impediment of traffic. Just so,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you. So does anyone have any further questions on numbers 2 through 6? Do you have any on the council? Do you have any questions in regards to 7 through 13?
Well, we're not voting on those tonight. right?
Yes, that's part of the second hearing.
Yeah.
The 7 through 13. Okay,
Right.
so we're just separating
I
them.
was just separating them
Okay.
because I thought they were two different
Okay.
topics, if you will. Could we just have one conversation? Okay.
It's a good
Okay.
ringtone.
So questions on 7 through 13 from the council? Heidi, no? I can't see your face, so I can't tell whether you're trying to.
I'm just looking at all of these and I'm like, how do I even make a motion on any of these, like these first 6? I think I agree with Julia that if there's no enforcement, what do we do with these?
Right.
Leave them
So
on the
now, do
books,
we leave them
or
on the books?
Leave them the way they are,
And there's no
or
enforcement?
and there's
or
no
do we-
enforcement. So if some people want to be honest and follow these ordinances, they come forward and they do what they do. But then if somebody doesn't, and I know there are some that do these things and they don't. So what do we do?
No, that's why I separated 1 through 6.
We
and
don't
then-
have anybody to enforce these
No.
things at all, so it's almost moot. Right?
Re-enter the building officials, say that they enforce it. I don't know. You can come up with something.
Yes and no, because there's no enforcement chapter. Yes, there's no one assigned to enforce these, but as the council and as the governing body, you have the authority to put that duty onto the individual that you so choose. If you choose it
I
to be
get that.
the building official, that can
And
be
just what they
something
need.
that's, a report, they accept, a complaint about it. They find out if there was a licensing. I mean, if it's a one-time event, that's kind of it's over and done with, type situation where how do you enforce it? But you do have the authority to
So-
put that responsibility on an
So
existing.
Scenario, okay? They have a fundraiser at the gun club or a state dinner or something like that. Gets a little rowdy. A neighbor complains. It's on the books. A neighbor can come and file a complaint. Then we can say, okay, so let's have the building official or the chief go out and look at it.
But what is the
After
penalty?
fact,
But
Right.
that-
No,
you-
after
you-
the
have
fact.
to go during the event.
But I'm gonna guess if it gets a little rowdy, they're calling 911, they're not calling.
And they're gonna have the cops shut it down.
They're
Right.
not calling the building
Council leaving a
official, yeah,
message.
at 10 PM, they're gonna call 911.
But
That's a good
what else
example.
is the
I think they're called-
penalty?
But that's part of the enforcement section.
That's what I'm saying.
It would assign somebody to accept the complaints, it would assign somebody to investigate the complaints, to draft up the reports to enforce it beyond, what's in the regular course of business of the police department, if someone does call the police department on it, and would provide for the penalties for violations.
But if there is a rowdiness and the chief is called, the police are called, there are consequences for that. Whether we have it on the books or not.
Well, that's
Noise
disturbing.
noise complaints, yeah.
Are
Yes.
individuals, not
Right.
necessarily
Sorry,
for
for
the event holder,
Mm,
unless there's, other things. That's
All right.
that's a deeply fact-based
So
breakdown.
getting to Heidi's motion then.
Which I didn't make.
She had, no, but your question about the motion,
Yeah.
could we just kind of? What is the consensus
you
without
looking-
taking a vote?
Are you
What do you-
looking to refer this to the building official when applicable? Like, should it go to? the
I'm
building
looking to
official?
say whether we want to keep it on the
To
books or
Building
not on the books.
Enforcement Division?
Mm.
Assign
I'm gonna put the
responsibility.
microphone
If
on.
I can answer Dave's question, that wouldn't be just a blanket.
I need
motion.
one conversation at a time.
Right now, you would have to write a whole enforcement section.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's not like with an important, you can't just say with an enforcement section because there's no proposed enforcement
Mhm.
section on the floor.
Roger that.
Chris, turn on your microphone before you were saying something. Did you want to? I thought you were saying something. Go ahead.
I did want to say something, but I forgot. Okay.
And that's good.
No,
So what is the consensus of the council? Keeping numbers, well, 2 through 6? Or without a vote, I mean, or do we want to remove those? Since they're mute, since nobody enforces them?
In my opinion, without an enforcement section, it doesn't really make a lot of sense
To have.
to have them.
Yeah, I would hate to have somebody come back to us and say, they're right here. Why aren't you enforcing them? To me, that's worse
Right,
than taking them off.
okay.
May I say one more thing, or is it just
council? No, chime in.
Just one more thing, and I think, and Ms. Hodges has the right idea. You either have to be all in or nothing.
Right,
Right.
Because like Grant said earlier, it's going to look like favoritism.
Mhm.
It's gonna look
Exactly.
like,
Right.
I like, my neighbor and I don't
Mhm.
like this guy.
Yep.
Right.
So it either has to stay or go.
Right, and that's what we're
And
looking
the
at.
And the police, we will investigate complaints and make a determination whether or not that's a chargeable offense or whatever, or break it up or turn the music down, or if it's worse. But as far as the ordinances go, we need to be very clear
Mhm.
about either it's on the books or it's not. It's
Right.
not quasi.
And
Right.
that's what our conversation is tonight.
Yeah.
So,
I make a motion to remove the first 6.
Do we have to
So-
make it in the affirmative and then?
I know you want more than that, Julia. Sorry.
So it's remove, that is an affirmative, action is to remove them.
Okay.
But when you make the motion, I'm going to ask that you
Define them.
that not just about, but read the sections because it's not just, it would
if
be
the
the first.
section numbers.
Yeah, but it would be the first 6, but if you could just read the section numbers, if that is the, whatever you're voted, whatever the
Okay,
motion is. Just for clarity of the record, it makes it easier for Michaela.
I knew you would say that. I make a motion to remove section 6-51, section 6-52, section 6-54, section 6-55, section 6-56, and section 6-57.
Second.
My reason is that we aren't going to enforce these.
Mhm.
And I don't want anybody to be able to pick and choose who has to and who
Mhm.
doesn't. That would bring so much more trouble and we don't want to do that anyway. So that's my reason.
Agreed. I want to thank Grant and Mr. Moreau for pointing those out.
Yeah,
So on a future agenda, there is a section 6-58, 6-59, 6-60, and 6-61 that do exist in this section. They just were not up tonight.
should they be removed?
Yeah.
as
I can,
part of-
I
we
can
can't
bring them
discuss
forward
them.
at a future
They-
meeting.
They just have to be properly
Mm.
Okay.
advertised and
Okay,
Grant has that under control.
okay.
Great, thank you. So then
Thank you,
moving.
Grant. Are we
All-
voting?
we are. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So then moving on to numbers 7 through 13. What is the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion to approve section 16-31,
Mm-hmm.
section 16-57, section 16-58, sections 16-59. Section 16-60. Is that it for that part? Or do I-
No, and the last two.
38, section 38-2, section 38-272.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused on some of these. Not
Okay.
confused, or just
Yep.
not comfortable with some of these.
Okay. So it passes 4-1. Thank you. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Yes, great.
I
Nice work, brother.
Moving on to old business. The engineering board meeting is Tuesday, April 30th. Do I have 2 volunteers willing to attend?
April 30th.
Yep, this coming Tuesday.
I think I can do that at 7.
Yes. Is there
Stony,
anyone-
oh, you got. Oh,
I'm not available.
You going? Sharon?
I will. I'll go.
Cheryl, all right, Heidi and Cheryl.
It's,
So-
it's.
It's, I believe it's at South Forster. That's where it traditionally is. They changed it to Forster Center one meeting, but it was because there was a conflict.
so it's still gonna be
It's
at,
still at South Forster
And at 7, right?
at 7.
you just gotta put this in
I
here.
will
so
let them know.
don't
Could I have a we don't need a motion.
Yeah.
We don't need a motion. I'll just let them know.
forget. That's at 7.
Okay, so next is the update on the opera funds. And Kelly gave us a spreadsheet.
Yes. So we're quickly approaching the deadline for this, and I have to actually report on this next week for the year ending March 31st. So that's their reporting period. I believe it aligns with when COVID really shut down the country. So I think the federal dollars that we're referring to was given as part of the American Recovery Act. So that's what this is about. Many of these programs are completed, but we still have some in the air. One is the recreation field. That is now done. So we have some monies left over there that I'm trying to figure out if we should use more of the American Recovery Funds, less of the payment in lieu, because that can go for changes or updates that we're going to have to. We have that payment in lieu fund that we can use for these types of recreation programs or fields. It's for capital and it's for the program. It's not for the maintenance of the program, but we do have some work on that field and possibly the tennis court that we might need funding for. So I don't necessarily want to apply all of our funds.
Which
against-
which one are you looking at? I'm looking at
The recreation field,
phase 2 and
Yes.
match for lighting. Is that what the one you're talking about? The
I'm talking about
58,000?
yeah.
Okay.
So we had originally put in maybe 75, then we knocked it down to 40,000, but so far I think the total was 58.
Okay.
So I could reallocate that to the payment in lieu because you did have enough there, or I can actually reallocate some of this towards that. These are all just things for discussion that I wanted to have. The other thing that was on is the fairgrounds lighting. We took that out we have no expenditures, but it was still
Mhm.
an option. Okay, that was 16,000. Then we had put 10,000 down for appropriated for townwide signage. Grant would have a better idea of what that's gonna cost, but right now we spent about $3,800 for the sign. We still have some of the materials to go for the sign. And I didn't know if that was partial or one or
Well, we
two.
have the signs here. They're not up yet.
Are these the signs entering Forster?
Yes. So we have both now, right? I believe, and that bill, that invoice, I'm assuming was for both.
So the support posts have never been
Right.
delivered, but we have paid the person who created the signs.
So
right?
that's that.
Or the support posts or?
No,
we-
just
We've only
for
paid
the
for the
signs.
signs themselves,
How
So-
many did we get?
9.
We got 9 of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we're not getting the support posts from that gentleman.
No, Situate
No,
lumber.
we have a quote from around Thanksgiving of last year from Situate Lumber, but they've
Okay.
never been delivered.
Do you
much?
remember what that quote was?
Around 2,000, I think.
Okay,
Oh, so we would still have, like
4,000
4,000
possibly.
left. Okay.
So, and then we have the town hall renovations. We had put aside 58,000. That was for upstairs, but we also had money in, capital for that as well. So we had about $40,000 for capital. It was for the townhouse was like 15, and then estimating around 25 that we would use for the townhouse, the town hall upstairs. The 15,000, if you recall, that they wanted to use. I don't believe that's gonna be possible. That was for the consultant that they wanted to hire to have some sort, to help them reach a status of, help me,
Oh, yeah.
historical,
The national.
national.
That was
Yeah.
Lynn Ryder
Yeah,
suggested
the
that. and we added
national,
that
yeah.
money in, yeah.
The National Historic.
Yes, so the National Register of Historic Places
Yeah.
includes Foster Center. So that means the Foster Center Historic District. So that means every building in Foster Center is automatically on the National Register of Historic Places.
Which gives
Um,
us funding, grants, opportunities, right?
It does, but there is a greater designation of a national landmark that effectively gives us more opportunities for grant funding.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to become a national landmark. I don't know all the criteria, but as soon as we posted an RFP for a national landmark nomination, they said, well, isn't this basically the same thing as a national register nomination? Because that's initially what we proposed until we
Right.
learned that we're already on it.
Right.
And they said, you're really going to have to look into it before you apply for a national
Mhm.
landmark.
It's a
But-
lot of work, isn't it? And a
Yeah.
lot.
We would actually
There's a lot
have
of
to.
very,
we have to
very
go to
specified
Washington,
work.
DC.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
That-
you're saying we're already in the National Register?
Yeah, so
Yes.
we're on the National Register of Historic Places. It
But-
wins us some points, but being a national landmark wins us a huge amount of points.
Right.
Mm.
So we're halfway there, but we're not, well, maybe a third there. And in order to really be eligible for the money that they were referring to,
We can't.
you'd have,
Plus the
we
limit.
can't, and it wouldn't be the 15,000.
No, right.
So, so I'm thinking that maybe we reallocate the upstairs portion to, we had the capital for that, or we free it up, because if you look at the next portion, town hall storage, we have an issue with that as
Yeah.
well. So we're looking for funding for these types of things. So I want to kind of reallocate, figure out what's actually free from the American Recovery Funds, reallocate that appropriately for the projects that we do have so that we can move forward. And I actually do have to report on this next week. So it doesn't have to be definite again. It's just that if you know you're not going to use the funding, let's not keep holding on to it. Let's use it for something different. So those are some of the suggestions I just wanted to bring you.
So we don't necessarily have the funding to really complete what we need for the townhouse or the president.
Not through
historic-
capital, so some of the money that we had allocated towards ARPA could actually be reallocated
We
towards the
need to
capital,
finish
and that would
storage.
free
Second.
this.
Now, don't confuse the two, town hall, townhouse.
Right.
You're
Right.
using,
Townhouse.
Yeah, well, she was
Townhouse.
talking about reallocating the money
Yes.
to finish the second floor storage.
Yes, yes,
Of
yes,
And I
town
agree with
hall.
that, yeah.
yes.
not
We're already
reallocating
in
for
the process of
townhouse.
doing it.
So we might have
We
some,
can finish that.
we can finish, well, yes, because we're not at all in the process of creating storage upstairs, because we don't have the money for a fire suppression
Mm.
system.
Mhm,
That is actually pretty cost prohibitive.
mhm.
But according to the fire marshal and all of the current plans, our plan for upstairs was already approved if we renovate above the vault.
Right.
So right now, to remove the storage from its current location, we need to complete the area above the
Above the vault.
vault so that storage can be moved to the town
We're still
hall,
on, we're still on the update on opera.
Okay.
so that we can move the storage to the town hall. Yes.
So you want to take the money that we were gonna use for the historical preservation, right? Is that what we're talking about? And you want to put it into upstairs? That's not gonna hurt us at all. You were just explaining that we are.
So we've already
Well-
allocated, we had 40,000 in capital for this
Right.
year. We've spent about 26. That was for some of the upstairs. The
Yeah.
16 that I have here was also for some of the upstairs. So that's just that one project that has been split.
Right.
So regardless, if we use that capital money, the other remaining 13 or 14, we have now some availability with this amount, or you can move all of that here and then we free up the capital. Regardless, this reallocation of expenses will free up the money that we need to finish upstairs and also to get the storage that we need to move our files back to the town hall and still and become compliant with the regulations from the fire marshal.
Okay.
All right,
I
and
mean, we don't
also.
really have a choice.
No.
That we have to
No,
do it.
one we can't do and the other
Right.
one we're 3/4 finished.
Right.
And by also doing this and realigning some of these, the lighting improvement at the fairgrounds, rather than have lighting improvement for the fairgrounds in the tune of 16,000, you're kind of over in projects anyway of 8. Take the remaining 8 and solve your scoreboard issue at the town, at the recreation site. They're like projects.
Yeah.
And it completes the project to what you want to accomplish. I
Mhm.
mean, whether it's opinion, it's everybody's different opinion, has a different opinion as to whether or not you need it. But if you decide you need it, you could then reallocate that funding from the lighting, from the field, which isn't happening, and actually move it and complete a project, which would be more in line with the rec
So
field.
I'm assuming you would like a motion so that.
To
we
at
have
least start realigning some of these
Okay.
projects.
To
Do you
realign.
have to be specific?
Not necessarily in dollar amount, but just say that you're not going to move forward right now with the lighting project at the fairgrounds. You wanted to allocate that money towards the rec site. Or that you would like to reallocate some of the recreation field to payment in lieu and to stay within the total amount available. And also the town hall renovations to reallocate and utilize the capital, because that was specific for the townhouse. So you would need to
So.
to
how about two
reallocate
motions?
that. Yes, please,
Two
because one
motions.
affects more of the opera, the other affects the capital, and it's like you're moving kind of money around to do so.
Okay, I'll make a motion because I'm you got all your stuff written down, but I'll make a motion to realign funding from lighting at the fairgrounds to the scoreboard at the recreation,
Right.
The-
Phillips Recreation Field.
You need to wait until we make a motion and then have discussion.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
Funds.
But yeah,
That's fine.
okay.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion from the council? Now I'll take discussion from you, Danielle. You need to come up for it. Pull it down so you can be heard.
Danielle Scott, 3 Pondington Road, Foster. With the recreation field, I know you had mentioned it was finished. Or you mean in terms of the original plan that was there in terms of the project being finished?
I do, actually,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
We've met the DEM grant provisions.
Requirements.
Okay,
And the grant award has been accepted and they've actually started processing. Thank you, God, the $400,000 reimbursement.
that's fantastic. I do know, I watched that. I do walk there regularly, my dogs, I know. It's important, but the side of it's gonna collapse, like the pathway is wearing away because of the storm.
Mhm.
And they planted bushes, which is a great long term, to keep, I literally feel like it needs to be looked at from an engineer, like what is it? Civic?
Slight engineer?
And then, I don't know, I'm not one, but a retaining wall or something that's gonna be more
Well, Chris
confident.
is the
that-
liaison, so Chris can look at it.
that was one of the
Speed, that's what-
provisions that you and Gordon were going back to the company with, correct?
I never met with any of them.
I feel like
No.
a civil engineer or
So
something.
kind of like
look
a
at it.
punch list item.
Right,
Right.
didn't you and Gordon make a punch list?
I did not, no.
Okay,
I remember walking through.
We
And
talked
finding
about it,
yeah.
but the meeting that I was going to attend got canceled
take
because
a-
it was
I don't
pouring,
think it's ever had.
and I don't think it ever happened.
We
was-
have a
It's
list.
not, the town, that's,
Are we
well,
on-
it just has
Yeah,
to be
but
done
it's
right.
Not really on,
No, but I
it's
think
not
it was
really
one
the
of the-
topic right now.
Yeah,
I think it was one of the corrections that we were supposed to have the contractor come back to.
I just, you're talking about allocating funds, I just wanted,
Right.
and also the goalposts. If anyone were to score a touchdown anywhere, those balls are going flying into cars or the house. So I think there needs to be like a net or something. I don't know how football handles it, but I hope that was part of the plan.
That's usually.
Okay, I think that was it. I was just concerned about the allocating of money, leaving that project, not, when there was things there. And it's amazing, by the way, it's really beautiful and people are using it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Danielle. Okay, so we've made the motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So then there would be the need for a second motion.
So
To-
just to reiterate, though, to be clear, before we go and purchase anything else, we will make sure that the funding for that
Yes.
rec field is fully secured
Yes,
to make sure that we can fully complete it
right.
before we move forward with anything else. That's
Okay.
important.
So then the second motion is to
Allocate
re,
the,
So it's between the capital, to free up the capital money so that the capital funding remaining for it actually does say buildings and grounds, right? Buildings and ground maintenance can be used for the town hall entirely. And between the ARPA funds available and that that project can be completed.
the second floor of the townhouse.
House,
So,
right? So
okay, but that doesn't, I mean, whatever's already in buildings and grounds.
No,
doesn't affect
Not
this.
building.
Capital. It's
Oh, and
capital.
And capital. Now-
It's capital for it was buildings and grounds in the way that was the townhouse and the town hall.
It's capital funds earmarked to be used
Used
for
for
buildings and
buildings.
grounds, but not specifically directed to a project.
Correct.
But-
So it was directed to a project. It was directed towards the townhouse. I'm asking you to free up that project so that we can fully use the money, we can reallocate some of these funds and these expenses to free up more of that money for the projects that are actually going to be completed and are available to be completed.
so
The townhouse,
does that
the
affect-
town hall storage.
That's what I'm saying.
And the second
capital
floor.
and this are two different things.
Right, no,
But the capital is already being used for the town. It was 25,000.
No,
No,
I
she's saying
understand,
it's
but I'm
not
saying we
part of
don't
the
make a
ARPA.
motion about capital when we're just reallocating ARPA funds.
We are, but if you reallocate some of these funds to be charged against the capital, because you're almost abandoning that second project for now. I don't have the right to do that. So I don't know how you do that, but
Is this so you have a record of bookkeeping?
Yes.
For the ARPA? funds?
yes,
okay.
I think it's to show balancing where the other money is coming from.
Okay.
Balancing the ARPA bottom line. if
So
that
I
makes
have
sense.
no idea how to make this motion.
Right.
So it's a motion to reallocate money, reallocate capital funds earmarked for townhouse renovations and move that funding over to town hall renovation.
yes.
Okay,
And change the ARPA, the expenses that we've charged to ARPA, or that the future planned expenses for the ARPA,
Oh,
we're
for
going to
the-
combine the two funding
I think-
sources.
I
Okay,
think it'll be easier if you add and allow the finance director to balance the ARPA funds.
Necessary,
complete
right.
any Projects you've already.
and
approved.
allow the finance
town hall.
director the ability to
Reallocate or
reallocate
balance,
and balance the funding between capital and opera monies.
right,
Second,
Yeah.
Thank you,
to stay within budget for
Okay.
both
Good job.
accounts.
Michaela.
discussion.
No,
I have one question. How does that affect further down on our agenda? We have the. Where is it? Oh, it's not- No,
No, you're talking about
I'm
the
talking about
survey or
survey.
something?
number 8, Foster Townhouse Survey Contract.
I don't know what that is or none of that money was coming from capital. So I
Okay,
don't
all
know
right.
where it is coming from. Is it from
Okay,
the
that's another
grant? Is
question
it
then.
some of
Or not.
buildings and grounds? Because I know there was a project that when he was doing some work that he discovered there
Right, so
was,
we discuss that later. I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that was, okay. So any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to Town Hall Storage second floor, which we kind of discussed as we went along. Renovating or prepping the second floor of the, over the
Right.
vault.
We have a quote for, I think George is working with somebody and he was working with the fire marshal as well to get approved plan, a plan approved. He had to have the, it drawn up professionally by, I believe, an architect or an engineer. I'm not quite sure which one. He did have it stamped and it was approved. So the other day when I saw the fire marshal, I asked if we could move forward with that because the town clerk is regularly going to storage to get the documents that they need. They need to have them put upstairs as soon as possible. So we're going to move forward with that project as long as we have the money.
To be
to
that
do this.
person, I would like to see a copy of that approval.
I don't even have it, but he did say, do you have it?
I don't, but I'd be more than happy to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess that plan, and the same thing with the easement, that original plan had the two easements.
Right.
Right, with that entire plan was accepted. And he did say that to me directly, so I did hear him say that. It's just now,
I just want. in
yes,
writing,
no, for sure,
considering-
for sure,
everything.
we should obtain that, and then, if now I guess we're trying to get a second quote for a different option and they're going to draw up those plans as well, because that would be a cheaper option too.
Yeah.
All of this really just will help us next year because we also budgeted 75,000 for capital for next year. And that might free up that money for the completion of these projects. If we don't need it, that's great. It just
Right.
goes back to capital and we have other more emergent needs for that money.
All right. Any questions, concerns? Do we need a motion? Do you want a motion?
I'm okay
has
with
the DPW director been involved in this?
Not to this point. It's been under George with, talking with the state fire marshal.
Do we need to
And
make
getting
a
the-
motion to keep it under George or anything like that?
We didn't take a motion originally.
What would be your pleasure?
I don't know. I'm just asking if we need it.
So what is?
I
what would
say
that-
no,
What would that look
Mm.
like? I make a motion
we
that
don't
we.
need it.
I don't think we do either.
You don't need a motion or you don't
No,
need,
they don't need a motion.
okay, that's fine. What's the
I
pleasure of
just
the
asked a
council?
question. that's
Okay.
all.
All right. So.
So
it's
George is
been
going to
George-
finish handling it, right?
Yes, he has a rapport with the
Yeah.
fire marshal,
Okay.
so let's stay with that.
Okay.
Moving forward, then. Oh, hey, we can finally do it. Reconsideration of December 14th. Don't tell me we can't.
No, no, we
Okay.
can't. I just wanted, so the only three members who can vote are Denise, Cheryl, and Chris, because they were the three that were
Right.
present. So David and Heidi, I just need you guys to abstain.
Yes.
Okay,
Please, thank you.
Okay, so, Mrs. Dillon had requested this to be on, for reconsideration.
Yeah.
Of December 14th,
I make
2023,
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
to reconsider.
So there has to be a motion to reconsider,
Okay.
and then that has to be voted on, and then the
And then-
motion to approve the
okay.
amended.
I make a motion to reconsider December 14th meeting, minutes as amended.
Second,
Well, it's,
No.
they're amended.
Your motion stand, no, you're right.
He can.
Yeah, it's me and
He
David.
can.
Me and David.
Okay.
He can.
I'm one of the guys.
So the motion has been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I
Second, and two abstained. Thank you.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
As
December-
revised.
As revised, just of December 14th.
Second,
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
aye.
I abstain.
Opposed, abstention, two. Thank you. So it passes 3-0-2. Phew, that took forever. Okay, so, next is the reevaluation letter and assessment. Do you want us to move to move something up further and then take, so you can have a minute?
I'm fine.
Okay,
this seems to be the topic of discussion for the week. So to clarify some of the questions, and I don't know if anybody here has questions, but it seems probably not. There was a lot said once everybody received their letters last Friday. To be clear, those letters were mailed, actually, we were told the letters were mailed a week before. So we knew instantly once everybody started receiving them, we were asking people daily and nobody received them till Friday. It was quite obvious. So the way it works is, to be clear, the 4% rule is on the levy. The levy is the revenue. So I saw on Facebook and we received questions, is the 4% on the expenditures? It is not. It's on the levy. So what happens is we cannot control how that impacts each individual bill or tax bill. So to clarify this, where some people were saying, well, my taxes can't go up for more than 4%, that is untrue. Some people will go up more than 4%. Some people will go down. Some people will stay at 4% or go to the 4%. We cannot define what each bill or invoice is going to look like. We can only define the total. The total of our tax levy can increase by 4%. Our levy is about 80% of our total revenue. So we can't even say that we can go up 4% in expenditures unless you have another revenue source to offset that. So when people said, my taxes cannot go up more than 4%, that is untrue. We hope that they don't, but we really have no control over that. When some people said my taxes are going up, period, I looked at some of those and they were actually incorrect. Their taxes were going to go down. So it depends on how your assessed value changed as a percentage of everybody else's. If the average was 37 and you went up 40%, you're probably going to receive an increase greater than the average. If you only increased your assessed value at 20%, there's a good chance that you're actually going to pay less the year after than you did now. So the whole point of the homestead exemption is to bring levels a little bit more equitable. It did happen. I don't know if I already mentioned it earlier. When we analyzed the taxes, it appeared that the commercial property did not increase at the level of the real property, of the real taxable residential property. As such, many commercial properties would have received a lesser tax burden or an actual decrease in taxes from year to year. That was not the intention. That's not the intention of a reval, but that sometimes happens. We don't monitor, we don't control the market. That said, by bringing the residential property more in line, should create everything. It should kind of level that off. But again, I have no control over that, and that's by the individual. Some people did have an increase of double their assessed value. If that's their fair market value of their home, we don't have any control over that. That's why we hire, and that is the actual law, that we don't assess that. An individual independent company does that. But again, to be clear, it's not that our expenses went up 4%. It's not even that our revenue is going up 4%. It is our levy. So if we levied $1 million last year, we can levy $1,040,000 this year. That's how it works. So if anybody has any questions, we have we have heard quite a bit this week. So hopefully that clears that up.
So Kelly, everybody is going to get this.
Everyone will receive that.
So they have to,
They
this
have,
application or they do not get.
they will not get it.
They get a letter with that?
Yes.
They will get a
Kelly
letter
said there'd be a letter explaining.
explaining this.
Okay.
The
all the
other,
dates and
I
times.
just started working on it today. I'll finish it over the weekend so it can go out together. And to be clear, today, the notice, I don't know if anybody read the Valley Breeze today, but
Yeah.
your notice of property tax, your notice, I can't remember, what is it? Property rate changes or whatever it's called, was in the Valley Breeze today. And underneath, the state allowed me to put a notice to Foster residents stating that This is not a final project, this is a projected rate, it is not final. We are trying to institute a homestead exemption. And these rates are not final. Many people are appealing. So as those appeals take effect, if they're successful, those rates will change as well. So, and we don't have all the property in. So as like there's certain new properties that are just going in, there's a lot to it and it just happens to be a big year. So we did advertise $17.45 because at the time I had to prepare the ad, the notice. That is how that's how the calculation read. I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. If it makes anybody feel better, a week before it was 1881. As the more information is in, it became 1745. So people are now recalculating their increases at 1745 and they're seeing $1,200-$1,500 increases. And I can't tell them at this point in time that they're wrong. But I do know for a fact that once they start applying for the homestead exemption, they will be wrong because the rate will change again.
Yeah.
But to be clear, it's going to go up. As you lower your assessed values, your tax rate goes up to collect the same amount of money. So when you see an increase in your tax bill, or you hear at the financial town meeting that at that date, I might be projecting a slightly higher rate, it's because as you decrease your valuations, your tax rate will go up to collect the same amount of money.
Mhm.
There's not much I can do about that either.
Right.
Thank you. Well,
So speak.
moving on to the multi-purpose community facility projects. Oh my God, you're back. Oh.
So that is a community project that we tried to have our library partake in. They weren't far enough in the process. So we reached out to our neighboring communities to see if rather than give our money back
To the state.
to the state, they could use it because it would benefit us to have a better infrastructure for them because our residents often frequent their community centers, their libraries, their whatever. So the Library of Gloucester was interested. I don't know what happened, but there seemed to have been, there was a communication fail in there somewhere where the state reached out to us and said they have now applied for so there's all these phases. We made it through phase 2. At phase 3, where we had to move forward, we knew we couldn't move forward. They were a little slow on responding to phase 3. And when they did, their project did not include our funding.
Gloucester.
Gloucester. So our project is their project. So their project did not include our funding. They reached out to Denise and I and said, are you still interested in this? Because they've just only asked for a project funding for maybe 833. And that they had enough money for that. So they didn't need our 400,000, nearly 400,000. So I didn't respond right away. Denise didn't respond right away because they were also on the same email. I figured, okay, they're the ones who are applying. Let's see what they say. A week and a half, 2 weeks goes by. We didn't hear. I reached back out to the state and I said, no, I believe that they must be moving on without us. We haven't received any communication otherwise. So that's where we're at currently. About 2 weeks after that, she reached back out to me and said they received a revised budget and that revised budget did in fact include our funding.
So the state.
So-
Gloucester revised theirs and sent. it to
Gloucester
the state.
revised theirs and sent it back.
But
Assuming
didn't tell us our money.
Well,
She didn't mention to us.
so she asked again, where do you stand? And you need a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement. So they had one signed and done by their council member about a week ago.
The
and
18th.
And I spoke with the planner. So I was now reaching out to the planner because the librarian is the one who's spearheading it, but she doesn't actually work for the town. And the planner was just trying to assist. The planner is now taking actually a bigger role in this. And she and I are going to communicate together so that we can be on the same page. I forwarded that MOA to Julia and asked our solicitor if she had any questions. And my main goal was to make sure that Gloucester was not held culpable or responsible for any lack of response on their behalf. Because if they don't completely finish the project, and this is what I was trying to say to them, we did our homework up front. I'm feeling that maybe that they needed to catch up a little bit. So we didn't want to be responsible because if the project is not fully functional, 100%, you lose all of the funding. And at that point, you've already spent it. So Julia looked at it, she added some wording. We sent it
Go ahead.
just in one section to make sure that Foster is not.
It requires that Foster hold Foster harmless or indemnify Foster for any non-compliance with the requirements of these funds.
Right.
Meeting any of the standards and checking any of the
So
boxes.
this is the one that's not signed by Mr. Worthy.
And it's that top paragraph on the back side,
Mhm.
and it's the last like line, half
Right.
line is what I added.
Okay.
To make sure that
Right.
Foster was protected.
So
He hasn't
throughout,
signed it yet.
no, well, throughout, they had really tried to take fault, like it wasn't bad. They really did recognize that we're supposed to be participating and that they didn't appear to be trying to hold us culpable, but I wanted to make sure it was very tight.
Yes.
That paragraph before I added anything to it didn't impute anything on Foster. I wanted to make, and so I just added that language to make sure that
Thank you.
not only did it not impute, but it was clear that
Yes.
Foster's not on the hook. for
Right.
anything.
Because Kelly and I talked about it a lot of times,
Right.
being reluctant to give them the money without something.
Right.
Concrete in writing that said, this is your project. We're more than happy to help you with it, but ultimately
If and they're gonna receive our
its
money.
success is they have to run the program. So they have a very programmatic, their librarian is a programmatic person. Like she can run the programs and do all of that. I think where she needs assistance is some of the communication with the state because it's a federal program and it's a little bit of a heavy lift. And if you're not used to doing that, so I think the planner there is going to step in and be that person. So she did reach out to her solicitor with this revised one. He said he was uncomfortable having it not go back in front of the council, but not necessarily with the language. So they're going to put it back in front of their council rather than just simply sign it. And that is Thursday. So they're going to
That makes
take our signed copy.
Yep.
They're going to go back to the council and I'm going to communicate all of this to Sagri on Monday to let her know where we stand because I did tell her.
Good.
Now, that said, I want to be clear, they may not actually get this grant now. So do you remember the part of our
had-
meeting
yep.
where you had to go all of these
Yep,
steps
yep.
and then they're going to let you know through their evaluation process whether or not they think you're going to be successful.
Right.
If they doubt the success of your project, they may not give you the funds. I don't know what their ultimate feeling is, but I don't want Foster to be the holdup
Right.
if we're not going to be responsible, because we did actually start out promising them the funding.
Right.
And that will never go away if you don't follow through on that. But to be clear, they may not, once we
Right.
send this in, when they evaluate it with their engineers and their people, say that because they feel that they're 2 months behind now.
Yeah.
Of everybody else.
Yeah.
So if they don't think that they have it
Meet
together,
that
they
date,
might not give
that
it to them.
deadline.
Okay? So I'll
David,
let
you
you
wanted to
know
say
next time
One
if
question.
that happens.
One question, just my own edification. They had 833,000. You didn't think they needed our money because they had the money for the project. Now they got our 400,000 make believe. Why?
Because-
Were they drawing from other funds to help?
No,
offset the
I think they
costs?
really thought that they could do it for 800,000. And then when they I told her, look at what happened to our police station, right? Have you actually gotten quotes or is this just your assumption that you can do an addition and another? So they were renovating one very, very old library and doing an addition on the second. And I think once they really looked into it, they won't probably be able to do it without the funding.
So, yeah,
So what's the
sounds-
pleasure of the council?
What do we need?
We need permission for me to sign this saying that, yes, we'll
Oh,
let
we
them have
have
the
to
money.
put this in place.
Right, right.
I make a motion to, right, second.
Sign away.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, oppose? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Foster, thanks.
Charter amendments. We had this on the agenda the last time, but Chris and Heidi were not here, and we felt that it was an important discussion to have with the full council here, so we put it to this agenda. Within your, it's not in this sugar sink. I think you had to go to the sugar sink,
The last one.
to the last sugar
Yeah.
sink to get the proposed, and then there were other things that we had.
I got it here.
Is it in this?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't notice it
Is
in
it
this one,
It says charter amendments, that's the one.
but it's not, it's not linked. But I didn't see it
Oh.
in there either, so I don't know.
Oh, wait. let me see.
It could
I'm
be.
looking at it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Siobhan.
Okay.
I got it. Yep.
Sometimes.
Because there's some from the planning board, then there's
Yeah.
some that were recommended last time.
Mhm.
We do not have to have a committee
Right.
because it hasn't been 5 years.
Mhm.
But Mrs. Dillon included what was recommended last time. So if we wanted to look at those, and I'm not sure tonight is, we'd be able to make the decision.
Yeah, you think it's.
Well,
we've got-
I don't know, we have a little bit of time, but I also think that if there's anything that we do want to move forward with, we need to put the PR into it. There are some things that we talked
Yeah,
about,
the
like the
4%.
4%.
That's. a big
People didn't understand. Well, and now look at what, people don't understand that 4%. So we have to really explain that and put that out there. So there are several things, but at least we're starting the discussion. So Grant, do you want to start with what the planning board has recommended?
Sure. There are two charter amendments that the planning board recommended that come from state law amendments, and then there's one that is recommended based on the, I guess it's loosely related to a state proposal. There's a House resolution to have the universities in Rhode Island educate more planners. The first section is 6.11 planning official. I personally think every department head should be appointed and should have a contract, but I'm the planner, so
I agree with you,
Um,
Grant.
yeah, so as the planner, I figured it would only be appropriate to make this proposal in the planner section of the charter. Where it says there shall be a planning official appointed by the town council to serve at the pleasure of the council, strike to serve at the pleasure of the council, and add for a term of 3 years pursuant to an employment contract, setting forth the terms of the planning official's employment and compensation for the same. And I copied this paragraph directly from the DPW section of the charter. And the planning official acts as the administrative officer. Nothing really changes there except for adding in the title of the planning official. And in the last sentence, adding in the line that says the planning official shall also have all the powers, rights, and duties prescribed by the laws of the state for administrative officers. And that includes based on the way appeals have been amended under the zoning and subdivision enabling acts. The appeal process would include any decision of the planning official and the enforcement of provisions being appealable to the zoning board of review, and any decision of the planning official in approving or denying projects being appealable to the Superior Court. The appeals process is simply just to match the way the state law handles appeals. So basically, it never happens, but technically the planning official is responsible for issuing violations of the subdivision regulations. Like if somebody started to build 2 houses on one lot before a subdivision was approved, I would technically be the one to enforce it. It just rarely happens. So that would get appealed to the zoning board, but if I screwed up on reviewing a minor subdivision application and denied it when I should have approved it, that would go to the Superior Court for an appeal.
So would that need to be a charter review, or is that just automatically?
So things that are not in line with state law and the charter, they can stay, but state law would override it. So it makes sense for it to be consistent.
Okay. Go ahead, the next one.
Section 9.01 is the planning board section. And this is the proposals here are being proposed to meet state law. So adding in the line after the sentence, well, it's actually all the first sentence. The first sentence reads, there shall be a planning board which shall act in an advisory capacity to the town council in all matters concerning the physical growth and development of the town and affecting the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the people. Adding in the line, except where otherwise prescribed by the laws of the state and ordinances of the town for such board. And then adding in a line at the end that says that the planning board, actually, we could strike out that first line because the second line would cover everything.
Which first line? I'm sorry, Grant. I'm trying to read along here. What was the first line?
The underlined section that says, except where otherwise prescribed by the laws of the state and ordinances of the town for such board. We basically just write that at the bottom where it says the planning board shall have such powers and duties as prescribed by the laws of the state and ordinances of the town for such board. So basically, the only reason that's brought forward is because the planning board can make decisions on variances and special use permits if that application also involves a land development or subdivision application with it. And the last section is 9.03. It's the zoning board of review. And all that's proposed here is to strike out the term planning board of review and replace it with the term board of appeals. Because the planning board gets appealed to Superior Court decisions of the zoning enforcement officer and of the administrative officer.
So it kind of piggybacks on our ordinances.
Yeah, and the ones that have been required by state law to change.
Okay. And then within your sugar sink, you'll see the other ones that,
From 2019.
Thank you, Grant.
So section 10.10, increase the amount of annual appropriations that must be used for capital from 2% to 4%.
We've tried this before. I think it's really important.
Well,
People do not understand it when it's been on in the past.
I know.
People referred to it as the council's slush fund.
Yeah,
But they don't, I think it's really important and we need to do this, but I think we need to send out a mailer or something.
well, that's what I
So
was saying earlier.
people,
Yeah.
talked about
people
before.
can really understand,
Yeah.
they need to understand, and we're doing it pretty much anyway.
Right.
But to have it be like a mandate in the charter gives it more weight, but I mean, it's how we fund our fire trucks, our police vehicles, our capital
Right.
projects for our buildings.
I agree, and I think that's why I
We-
mentioned in the beginning.
But we
we have
definitely
to
need,
pick, because we have to do
Mhm.
PR, like the
yes,
4%.
absolutely.
So also, we're not really doing it. We're doing like 3+%. So I
Right.
think that we should add a component to it this time that states that we will bring it up a certain percentage, like that we have three years to comply fully. So that we're not
Jumping
in
right
year
away.
one
Mm.
we don't in year one have to fund another $100,000 or whatever it might be to capital. I don't have the budget in front of me because coming off of a increase in
you'd wanna
of
do
4%, like I want,
Two
I
and a
would
half,
say to
three.
say, well, we're already at 3, to say that we would, whatever we do or however we are able to do that, we would allow ourselves, like say 2 or 3 years to
Yeah.
implement. Because that was one of the biggest concerns. They knew that it was going to cost money
Right.
Mhm.
to do it. And I think if we say we will phase that in over a 3-year period, and I can do some analysis on it to see where we currently are and what that would look like over a few years, that might be better accepted,
Mhm.
Mhm.
truthfully, because I think
It's
it
all-
was the
it's
lack
all-
of knowledge because
Yeah.
people saw it as 2%, which
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Right.
Like, so if we were funding 228, that's another $250,000 we're gonna have to come up with, and it's not. And I think if we give ourselves time so that they
Mhm.
don't immediately think that they have to fund it, that might help too.
I think it's all informing people of what it really is, because before they saw it and they had no idea what it was.
Mhm.
And we did it at the same time of finding a new revenue source, such as possibly the land trust. They could see that almost as a wash, like this additional money we're having is going to go to that funding. Now, is that 100% true? It may not be, but it's it would help too, that it's not just going to be raised by taxpayer dollars.
So the section 10.10 is something that we want to
Where are
move
we?
forward with. That's the increase with the,
The 10.10, yeah.
okay, so that's something we think we want to move forward with. If we look at that sheet, at that chart, it's different than what's also in the written out version. The typos we went through, the 4-year term for the council, I don't know what people think about that.
Yeah,
And then, creation of the position for town manager. The change, well, we did.
yeah,
the
we
change of
already
the
did that,
treasurer,
yeah.
the nonpartisan municipal elections. Revised purchasing language so that
Mhm.
bidding and purchasing requirements are only controlled by state law.
Mhm.
Didn't we, or do we already do that, Kelly?
We did that.
Yeah,
We did that,
Yep.
okay. And then provide for recall of elected officials.
we didn't do that one.
We
right?
didn't do that
No,
one.
no.
And we,
So the land trust, I'll say, I think that's really important.
mhm,
And I know we've had a couple of meetings with them. And my opinion is that we have enough land that's been taken off the tax rolls. They have enough land for their trails and everything. I mean, we're in pretty dire straits in the town.
mhm.
I think they've enjoyed that for how many years? Was it since 74 or something like that? A long time, where they've had all the tax stamps. So my opinion at this point, and it may not be popular, especially with the land trust, is that we give them an operating budget and then we use the rest for the town. That
Linda,
I think,
Linda and I have had
Yeah.
conversations about this, and she's willing to sit down and talk with us.
I know she
She's not,
she was
there-
she was around a 60-40 last time, and
Right.
I don't think that's enough.
so I would, if this is something, and I think we all agree we need to move forward with this,
Mhm.
is to invite them back and have a discussion with them again. And be, I don't want to say more forceful, but we'll
Well-
say, we're gonna put it to the people and let the people decide.
I agree, and I mean,
In reality, we do it with all the other,
Right,
the
mhm,
library, the fire stations, we do it with everybody else.
Right.
we do.
right.
Right.
Right, so I think, inviting them back for a conversation,
Mhm.
and just, like I said, I think Linda has been receptive.
She has,
And
she has.
so
I think we disagree on how much. but-
Right, but I think it's a conversation we have, and
yeah, she's-
basically, it's not us deciding, it's putting out to the people.
It is.
And let the people decide.
Is this voted at the national election?
It has to be
Yes.
during a November election.
Not our financial.
No, it has to be during the November election. So we still have some time. I think they have to get until August.
Yeah, July 25th.
So I would like to see it finalized, if you will, by the end of June,
Absolutely.
so that we can then begin
Mm.
our PR, if you
I
will.
agree.
So, so we go along with the land trust conveyance tax, that's section 10.17. Okay. The rest of it doesn't, that pertains to them. So I guess looking at what the planning board has proposed, the planning official having a 3-year contract, is that something that people want to move forward with?
I think so.
I think so as well.
I think so. And Denise, I'd like to add to that, and I'm not sure how we would do this. So every department head in town is appointed
Right.
and has a 3-year contract, with the exception of the planner right now.
No, not every department head does.
Oh, well, I mean.
Building and zoning official doesn't, tax assessor
He's not
doesn't,
full-time.
but there's positions within. So are you saying full-time only?
I'm
Are you
thinking,
saying,
well, what I'm getting at is we have our, okay, let me put it this way. Our department heads are all appointed.
yes,
With the exception of the town clerk.
right,
It was voted before that she would have, I think I'm on,
it's a
a
4-year term.
4-year, it's a 4-year term
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
And this has been talked about for 20 years. I don't know why we have an employee, because every department head is an employee of the town.
Mhm.
And there's only one that is elected.
Mhm.
So I think that the town clerk should also be appointed and have a contract, like the planner is looking for a contract as well as other department heads. It's just my thought that why do we have one elected?
So you're thinking of another amendment to.
Right,
Charter.
I'm not sure how we would do it since the term changed to 4 years.
Right.
And currently,
And
there's
it's
2
not
years
left,
left on
right.
this. I just don't
And
know.
whatever is voted on in November.
Wouldn't be able to take
doesn't-
effect for 2 years.
Right,
Right.
right. And even if the 3-year, it could be in effect after,
It could be. a
after the
3-year
election.
That,
Yeah,
that would be, in effect after December when
Right.
you all took office.
Right,
yeah.
whoever takes office.
So like for the planner, it would
Right.
be take effect right away, like that.
Okay,
right?
I thought you were saying.
No.
You thought all department heads should have a 3-year
No,
contract.
I'm just.
Okay,
What I'm saying is we have one department head that is elected, but is also an employee when, you know, they're a paid employee of the town. And I just think it makes sense to have appointed and have a contract. Like we do for our finance director, I think our planner should. The police chief does.
well, we're employees of the town. We get a stipend.
We don't get benefits. No, I'm saying, I mean, we have,
Yeah,
you know
get-
what I'm talking
yeah,
about there,
yeah.
and they're,
All right, well, let's think about that because that wasn't part of our,
no, it wasn't. It's just,
So-
it's been talked
but
about
let's look
for
at,
years.
so let's look at the ones that we do have proposed here. So we
Mm-hmm.
have the 3-year contract. So are we?
I don't mean to interrupt. But
Yes, you
could you
do.
make a, statement that the Zoom is a live stream because the land trust is raising their hand? He
Oh.
moves the hand down, they raise the hand, so just a statement.
Okay, those people that are participating via Zoom, you will notice that on our agenda, it states that it's live stream, which means that we are not accepting questions from the Zoom participants. So, but topics will be brought up again and you can come and participate in the audience. Thank you. All right, so now we have the 3-year contract. We have the ones that are going with the state law. So those, I guess we should put on. That's the 9.01. And then the charter special acts for the zoning, that again is a state. So 9.03. So those are things that basically, I guess, what the planning board has put forward, we should.
We can vote on them tonight.
We can vote on those tonight.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the planning board's recommendation on section 611, right?
Yep.
Nope, she's gonna correct me again. Go
Ah.
ahead.
I wouldn't use motion to approve. I think I would, accept and do a motion to accept and propose. Because the charter, you guys don't approve the charter amendments, you guys
So
send them to
We
the,
send them to the vote.
so
Oh,
just,
okay. Okay,
accept and propose the proposed charter amendments to the taxpayers at the general election.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend to the taxpayers at the
November.
November elections. The changes.
The following amendment
The
changes.
following amendment changes to the charter of the town of Gloucester for section 611. Section 901 and section 903.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. So then, looking at this chart, if you will. We did discuss about the section 10.10. Moving that forward, are there any others that you feel should be moved forward at this time? Or do you want to still consider them and have them on a future agenda item?
We approved these once before.
We
right?
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and the reason we felt that they failed
There were too many.
were because there were too
Too many.
many. And because we didn't fully explain them
Right.
before they received it. So if no one has changed their mind, I'm thinking that we should propose to move these forward once again.
All of
Some of
these?
them-
All of
Some
them?
of them
Oh,
have
no,
been
I
done.
think,
Yeah.
No, I have to be.
I think we
So,
removed 604
okay.
already.
We already have 3 that we want to move forward.
Yeah.
I think we need to prioritize.
Okay,
And the land trust ones, I think is a priority.
Yeah.
yes.
I'll make a
Yes.
motion to move forward the proposed change to the charter. Section 10.10 to increase the amount of annual appropriations that must be used for capital from 2% to 4%.
And then 10.17.
I thought you wanted to meet with them first.
Well, I think we're gonna put it on. We're just gonna talk to them about it.
Okay?
10.17 is.
The land
Land
use
trust.
land trust.
I'm not, but I'm not sure what to put as the change for that yet. I mean, I suggested an
Okay.
operating budget, but we haven't,
We have, all right,
agreed on
so-
anything.
all right, then let's just put forward and we
Okay,
can
that one.
further discuss that.
all right, so I made that motion.
Second.
Okay,
That's it, just two?
no, just the one 10.10.
We're gonna-
We didn't do the land because we don't,
So the capital one that you did propose though isn't going to be worded exactly as you're saying, correct?
right,
Because we
right.
want to kind of phase
right,
it,
we want it, but we're just,
to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so just that you know it's going to be a part, but we're gonna
Right.
work on the word
Right.
and the language.
Can't we
Okay.
do the same thing with the land trust?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That we're going
Right.
to work on the language, but we're going to move it forward?
Okay, well, I have that motion. that's
so
on
we
the
got
floor
that
right
motion.
now.
Let's not make it
Right.
more difficult.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so further discussion. So it's not exactly as worded here, but we're going to work on that
Right.
language. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So then, Cheryl, do you want to move forward with discussion about the section 10.17 land use conveyance tax?
I propose that we move forward with 10.17 land trust act. Advance it to the general election
Okay. Motion's been made.
with discussion.
Right,
after
for
discussion.
language discussion.
Mhm.
Second.
No,
My only concern about that is the difference is the language you're adding to the capital is merely just the phasing for like the implementation, and that's already been discussed.
This is the whole money
And
thing.
this is a different, you'd be creating a different procedure, I
Mhm.
think, for the land.
so you want us to hold off on it?
Yeah, you should
Okay.
hold off until you have.
I
at least an
withdraw
idea.
my motion.
Can-
But
my
it stop me.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Are there any others that you're looking at that? So right now we have 4 with the strong possibility of 5.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we can look at it further, see how those,
I thought that's what you
5.
wanted to do.
yes, that is, so. Great, thank you.
No.
Moving on. To recycling and tipping. I'm sorry. Can you
Oh.
move up?
On this.
Oh, the food truck events?
Mm,
I told you earlier that it had to be.
About mailing letters to people, like.
I didn't know if you were gonna like just address it a little or not all.
I mean, I can.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion to move item number 7, food truck events up to this point in the meeting.
Second,
Second. Discussion, hearing none.
Did you get that?
Aye.
aye.
So we moved 7 up to discussion.
Opposed? Okay. So when, the food truck events, so number 7, food truck events. Could we just have one conversation? Heidi made the motion, Chris seconded, and we're on. Julia,
We didn't vote on
we did.
it. Oh, we did vote?
We did
Okay.
vote on it. Oh, my gosh. So,
It's getting late.
food truck events. Go ahead, Danielle, go ahead. Name and address.
With the big mouth there, sorry. Danielle Scott, 3 Pontiac Road, Foster. So I know that you're getting rid of the ordinance about the public hearing, is that correct? I want to make sure I understand what's
I'm
happening.
gonna let Julia answer
And so I'm
everything.
just trying to figure out what exactly is happening.
So we didn't get rid of the ordinance. They changed it. So it's a public meeting, not a public hearing now. It doesn't require advertising. 3 weeks before the meeting regarding the event permit specific to the mobile food establishments, so the food trucks. Letters have to go out by regular mail to abutters within 200 feet. Those can be obtained through the GIS system that everyone has access to. And then a affidavit of notice has to be submitted to the clerk for the public meeting.
Affidavit of notice submitted by whom?
The applicant. So the applicant sends out the mailing and then the applicant submits the affidavit of notice. The notice form and the affidavit of notice are now with the town clerk, so they can provide the copies of the forms.
Why do we have to do that? Is it illegal? Is there a legal reason why because
That's-
recreation is a town committee and we're providing an event.
Recreation is the applicant. The applicant is the food truck.
Is PVD food truck.
Right, but
But it's a
just keep-
recreational,
but it's a recreation event. That's like,
reoccurring.
right, it's a reoccurring, it's something that we as a recreation committee brought to the residents of our town.
We understand.
So,
Go ahead,
but anyway,
Danielle.
I'm just wondering, is there a legal reason why we have to send letters to the abutting people too?
Because that's what the ordinance requires now, because this was all during the public hearings on these ordinances, the last 3 meetings.
Okay, so that has to stay the way it is?
I mean, they can change it again, but there need to be a proposal to change it. They can't
The
just change
reason
it.
I say
now.
that is because
Truck company, we wouldn't know,
Right.
we'd want them.
Right, it's not specific to this one event, it's specific to all food truck events, that have 2 or more food trucks that come to town.
So it's only the food truck events that have to send letters to the abutting
It's
people?
those who are, those who the MFE ordinance applies to, that is what it's written in.
The mass.
Yeah, that's the event permit / temporary mass gathering permit, and they've lessened the requirements on it. Because originally it was a lot more stringent, so they've lessened the requirements on it, but this ordinance has been heard, I don't know, 10 times since I've been working with the town.
I know, I
Between
think-
2020 to now,
Yeah,
so I'm
If
Do-
the recreation was the applicant, then they would not have to.
that's not how it's worded,
Okay.
because we had concerns over discrimination.
Okay.
About treating those who are working with the town better than others, because as I understand it, there are not currently standards for how how recreation is required to decide who they work with and who they don't.
Yep.
It's purely at their pleasure, and that creates an issue because there are no specific standards, and that creates a problem.
So,
And that's a problem across licensing issues and
right,
across the
so
board.
if
with
I
other
could
things.
paint a scenario. The farmer's market was not part of the recreation committee. If there were 3 food trucks there, they would have to go through the process. More than two.
Yes, but 2 or more, but
Yeah.
yes.
Well, that's what I said. That's more than 2. My point is that's where, see, the recreation department doesn't have to be the only food truck mass gathering event. And what Julia's saying is what we talked about for a couple of years. We don't want the recreation department to have less requirements than anyone else, because then there's an appearance of an impropriety. We want to treat everyone the same when it comes to mass gathering and food truck events. well, it's mass gathering slash.
It's an event permit. It's an event permit.
Yeah.
No, but they have the same essentially requirements. They just have different fees. And different, so they have, when I say same requirements, same notice requirements. But temporary mass gathering, I believe, is 500 or more people for 2 hours or more. That's not the situation. This is an event permit, which is strictly 2 or more food trucks. Among other things, but the 2 or more food trucks.
So the applicant has, so the letters that go out to the abutters, I think, or within so many yards. When they get those, I just want to understand, when they get those letters, can they argue against it?
Yeah, so it's their
Yes.
notice for the public meeting so that they're aware. It's the same as, it's a lesser version of the fact that it had to be advertised before for a public hearing, giving everyone notice to come.
Okay, so. It's interesting, so we're holding an event on the town fairgrounds. They chose, and this is just you tell me, because I don't understand this, they chose to buy their home next to the town fairgrounds. I was assuming. Legally, I just want to understand, so legally, I would think that if you're gonna purchase land next to what town, like, you're gonna know that there's gonna be things held there.
Right, but you don't necessarily know that there's gonna be an alcohol truck, or there's going to be live music, or there's going to be for specific dates. This is so that anyone who has concerns can bring it to the council, so the council can put appropriate stipulations on any licenses. Like including the town as an interested party on the insurance policy, making sure that there's, you know, $1 million in coverage, making sure that there's appropriate workers' comp, making sure that everything is in line. Because it is a town property, we want to make sure everyone's doing things legally and that DOH licenses are valid and all of that.
Okay.
So it's their way of checking. And, but also gives notice to the people around. It's a less expensive version of what it was. I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to understand. So what, my thing about so what if the neighbors come back and say, we don't want to have this? What would happen?
They could have, that's up to the council. That's not up to me. That's up to the council. They could have done that
They don't-
before with the public hearing and the council can still issue it. Or they
Yeah,
can
but
deny it.
the
It
public
depends on-
doesn't vote, the public just gets to express their concerns.
The council makes the
Okay.
decision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Her phone?
Yeah,
she dropped it. Or she threw it, one of the other.
And through it, right? Thank you very much.
So you're all set now?
I find
Thank you.
understandable.
No, I just want to make sure. Okay. So did you speak to the applicant
I did,
and May 16th or?
I mean, I did express May 16th, but I mean,
Would you like me to email you the notice and the affidavit of notice to provide him so that you have digital PDFs of them?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I do that right now?
That's neat.
Is there a different date?
Well, no,
The
we
16th
can't do
is-
it tonight because
Oh.
they haven't sent out their.
Oh.
So
okay,
would
got it.
he prefer to have it? No. Would he prefer having a special council meeting May 16th just for this?
They would need to go out tomorrow.
Or else.
This-
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
You know,
I mean, he could send them out tomorrow. He is the applicant. But they would need to go out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I know.
It was hard to miss.
Okay, hi, Linda. I saw you come in.
We all saw
Would-
you come in, Linda.
Would you like us to go back to?
Yeah.
Is-
Go ahead, Grant.
Okay, so before we go to the land trust, I just wanted to bring up a couple things about mobile food establishments. An event permit for a mobile food establishment says that that event needs to be located on public property. So if we are holding food truck events at the fairgrounds, generally it would be thought of as the fairgrounds is a place where events are held. We'd be notifying the same handful of residents
Mhm.
over and over again, and they would continue to show up to the meetings with the same concerns. And that's also important to note that somebody can have it seems that somebody can have a mobile food truck event and on their private property, say for their kid's birthday, and not require a hearing. Is that
The one
accurate?
with only one food truck requires a hearing anyway. Actually, no one requires a hearing anymore, but no one with only one food truck would require an event permit.
If you have more than two,
Two or more.
two or more.
Now, a mobile food establishment event is said to mean an event where an individual has ordered or commissioned the operation of one or more mobile food establishments at a public or private gathering.
That is the bare minimum. So if you guys wanted to make this ordinance more restrictive, you could go that strong. You guys
We
opted
did
not to
too.
go that strong. That is the absolute limit that the state said you could do. You can make it less restrictive. You guys opted to make it less restrictive back in 2020. I would also like to point out that this ordinance is not on the agenda.
Okay.
We kept it on so we could answer recreations questions relative to this, but the ordinance itself and debating the ordinance is not on the agenda, was not properly advertised to be on the agenda.
Okay, so I mean, it's just my thought that if events are to be held at the fairgrounds, we would be notifying the same people every time. And
Right.
it seems like the applicant could still submit an application where insurance and all of those things are considered by the council. It's just not at an open discussion and it doesn't need to be
Well, right now. at
advertised
this
for 3
time-
weeks. And I understand it does right now, but I just don't see the purpose of
Then maybe a
notifying
future,
people
it
over.
might be a future thing, but right now we've exhausted this ordinance to
Many times.
many, many times. Linda, you wanted to say something? Did you want to be part of the meeting at any point? Do you want to join us? You can. Just come forward, state your name and.
I'll pep in that step, Linda, you made it pretty far in that short time.
Linda Tibbetts, 16 Mill Road. I would like to comment that, is it well known that this kind of a meeting, people joining virtually can't comment or anything? Do people know that, or is it, I mean, I'm old, my technology is not quite up to
I'll
par,
leave it to Julie.
It was advertised as live stream, so
but live stream means you can't
not participate. It's attendees only.
So do
And-
people
Right at
know
the
that
top.
It's been advertised that way,
as live stream?
and that's.
As live
that is
stream.
the
So I guess
definition.
you would have to know live stream means
And that,
that you can't participate.
that's
Okay.
pursuant to a Rhode Island Attorney General guidance on the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, just, I think a lot of people don't know that.
Hopefully
I'll
they
talk
know
to
now.
Just wanted to say
Now
that.
they do.
If I can make just one comment that
Sure.
I had wanted to do for the land trust is that town council people should bear in mind for whatever you're doing, you know, with any conveyance tax changes, is that the land trust is slightly different than some of the other committees where you just approve of an operating budget. We also are required to have our own insurance,
Mhm.
pay for our own attorneys, and do all these other things. So there are reasons that we have to have money in the bank, kind of thing.
Mhm. And that's why we wanted to have the conversation with
Everybody
you,
else.
Is the fire department?
but we wanted to have the conversation with you.
Yeah,
And
and
move-
I'm sure
and-
the other land trust members would
I
love to
just-
come and participate.
Yes,
on
and
it.
that's what we had said.
Yeah,
We
and
were,
we would like maybe an official invitation so
Yep.
that we know. in
and
advance.
that is one of my notes here,
Okay,
is to have that move forward and to invite you so that we can have those discussions
okay.
here.
And then I think I had my hand up another time and it was for the.
We can
food
see you,
things,
we
I
can
know. So if like Borders Farm, and
Yep.
I'm president of Borders Farm Association, and we have monthly events in the summertime. And we have we don't charge a fee for them, we're nonprofit.
We deleted that part.
And right, the whole thing was deleted, but I was curious as to what's the difference if we don't charge for people to come into our events, but occasionally there might be someone who is presenting something and they have a fee. And if we don't have a grant or money to cover that, we might charge for people to join that part of the event.
But we
not the whole
removed-
event. So the whole thing is done.
Yeah, they're not requiring
Okay, so-
an event
okay.
license anymore for
Okay.
for things
Yeah.
unrelated to the mobile food establishment ordinance.
All right, and if we try to have like a food truck we could have one.
One food
maybe?
truck. If you have two
good
or
to know.
more, you've got to come see us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Linda.
thank you, Linda.
We need a line so you can just call in, Linda.
It needs to be a red phone.
So, thank you, but thank you for coming over and we certainly appreciate it. But
I didn't know Mill Road was that close. You made it in 5 minutes.
don't, the chief is sitting here, don't be.
Oh, you were at town hall. Yeah, you were close.
Okay, so you two ladies is still sitting here. Oh, no, you don't have to. I didn't know whether you. I didn't know whether you
I
had
see
something.
what you did. Oh, yeah, I know.
We, okay,
Thank goodness.
all right, so,
Take care.
thanks,
Have a good night.
bye. So you have in your packet, we had discussed this somewhat last time, but, felt that we needed to have more discussion. I do know that there have been a couple of times that, Mr. Rogers, with the approval of myself and Mr. Stone, has gone to residents and said, you need to get a dumpster. You can't be putting this stuff out on the street. So
I like this idea,
of doing,
the red tag.
Yeah.
Yes.
The red and the green.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I agree.
so, you have in your packet, it's red and green, somebody colored. Somebody had a.
Oh, yeah, my grandkids, they used to. check.
So it says,
like that.
I don't know if you can you pull it up so people can see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold it up.
Oh,
If I hold it up,
Standing by.
You get to see my grandson's artwork. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
No, that was
this is
okay.
bad. Sorry.
is that good?
This is what I said.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
look at that.
Thank goodness you have your nails done.
I know.
I was just thinking that.
Okay. So, oh, it won't stay there permanently, so I get, okay. So,
Yeah, do a screenshot.
so I can't read what it says now. So does somebody else want to,
I've got it.
Absolutely can't.
You're all set, Denise.
has he got it?
You wait.
You were
It's
fine to
not,
put that down.
Okay. So now it says, Town of Foster, the red plot, bulk waste disposal notice. This is not a permitted item to be picked up. Please contact Town Hall. So Heidi, this was your recommendations.
Yeah.
So do you wanna?
Yeah, so we had talked about if there was a way to do this on the e-permitting system. Where, well, I guess we would have it on the town website, which things like I see you put East Providence. As far as
That's who I reached out to.
that was one, yeah.
I had a discussion with them.
Yeah, so I think we would have a spot on the town website for which items are not accepted by our trash, because it's increasing our tipping fees. There's a lot of stuff out there. So there would be a list of the items and how much it was to remove them. So that would be, if they go on the town website, they would get like a green, pay for whatever it is. If it's $25 for like a couch or something, I don't even know what the numbers are. We'd have to work with the numbers and see what we wanted.
Yep.
All right, so.
One conversation at a time, please.
So. I mean, this is gonna have, it would have to be a work in progress to see
right.
how much we want to charge for each thing. But if they could go on and just pay like they do for a regular building permit or
So-
any other permit.
Could I be so bold, if you will, to accept a recommendation or a motion to recommend that Mr. Stone, as liaison to DPW, and Mrs. Rogers as doing all this research via committee and
Just
determine,
compile a list.
compile a list? No, we can't. I can't.
You can, but let's not use committee.
Committee,
because
yeah.
committee Requires.
Okay.
Oh, and
Right,
Okay.
but two council members
Two
can just
council members.
discuss.
A
Yeah.
team, okay. So
Hey,
that
Stony, you're on my team.
you sit down and come up with some and then come back to us?
Yeah,
Instead of us
yeah,
looking through it all?
I thought the other thing that Gordon suggested was when people apply for some kind of a building permit, demolition permit, something like that, that
They
there be a
added that.
box, it is added.
It's
on
added
now,
on,
because
yes.
They check off a box
Yeah.
acknowledging that they have to get a dumpster and they
Yes,
can't
because
put.
he talked to me about that and
Yeah.
I went to Mrs. Dillon and she spoke to Jane
And got that on
and that,
there.
and got it on there.
So I think that will help.
I
too.
think, I asked to have it be in bold
Yeah.
and that they have to check off an initial.
Yep.
So that
So
they
they
know that,
acknowledge
we
it.
know that they've seen it.
So they can't put an entire bathroom out on
right.
the road.
Right.
Yep. So, okay,
Could I get a motion?
do we need
to-
one, or Chris and I can just work on it? Do we need a motion?
That's a pleasure.
What's the pleasure of the council? You fine with
Yeah,
that?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you
we'll just,
And you can come back to us.
yeah.
Let us know when you're
We can-
ready.
Expect weekly updates.
All right, so but
You let us
you
know
liked, you liked the East Providence
Well,
one, so
someone had told me East Providence, so.
I think
checked
Gordon
with them.
liked East Providence too. I just
So,
thought, that,
Whatever you guys want,
okay,
go for it. Okay, and then come
All right.
back to us.
all right.
Okay, so
Sounds
then you have
Good.
the construction permit fee increase. I guess George went through, our building and zoning official went through what we have, and I guess we have not been very, here's where it is.
Oh, okay, on the
Okay.
permit, yep.
So, he went through what we currently have and asked, brought us up to date, if you will. We were kind of low on our.
Yeah,
So. Just to ask the question, what were they?
I've got,
Well,
I put the old ones here.
You have the old
Yeah,
one?
I do.
I tried to go on the website, but
yeah, it hasn't been updated in years. Everybody's salaries and the cost of doing business in town hall has gone up and our fees have never gone.
I was just curious how much he went up.
You have the old one?
I do. I do. I just gotta try to put
But
these together.
Do I understand this do I understand this correctly? So on a building permit, it's $75 plus $8 1,000 square feet.
Tell me again?
Where at, which one are you,
Permit values. Halfway down the page.
Oh, I see, okay.
oh, okay.
I was looking up at the top.
$75 plus $8 1,000.
I've got 50.
That's right below it.
Oh, that's the old one. There's a new one now.
Per $8 plus $8
This
per.
is the new one.
1,000
Oh,
square
I
feet.
get what you're at.
Oh, all right, because I printed out the one from before. I see this one. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I think it's, the old one is attached. Wait 1 second. I think there is two.
I printed these out.
Yes, all right,
Yeah.
yeah, it is
Up
here.
to 2,000
Yeah,
square
because
feet.
it was.
I'm
it
sorry,
was
I didn't
50.
scroll down.
It was 50 and now it's 75. He's recommending 75 with 8 per thousand.
If I'd known that,
Am I
I would
reading
have
that
printed it out.
correctly?
Yeah,
So it's a $50, it was a $50 minimum. So those permit values were the old ones on the, if you scrolled all the way down. George's proposals are up above that. So it would be up to 2,000 square feet, it would be $150. 2,000 to 3,000 is 175.
And does anybody know how that compares to surrounding towns?
Yeah, I think that's what George
That's what he
did.
did.
George went to towns like Richmond, Situate, similar towns. That fit in the same demographical footprint as we do.
I was just looking at this, the cost per square foot. So,
Well, it changed because it went from main floor, second floor to
Right.
yeah, I saw,
up to 2,000 square feet, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. So this top portion is different than
The old one.
the old
Yeah.
one. The old
Yeah.
one said main floor, second floor, other floor,
yeah,
walkout breezeway, which he does have there. Walkout breezeway was 50, now he's recommending 60. Where he's combined, I guess, the main floor, second floor, other floor to up to 2,000 square feet, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet and over 3,000 square feet.
So
And then,
nobody ever answered my question.
okay,
mm,
What's the
What's the
difference?
$75 plus $8 1,000 square feet.
Yep, so it's
Is
75
that,
plus
am I reading that
$16.
correctly?
Yep, it's 70, it was
Okay, thanks.
$75
It
plus
was
16. If you look at the top, 2,000 square foot is now 150 flat rate. It would have been $8 per square foot. It would have been 75 plus $16 for a
So-
2,000 square foot building.
So he didn't change the $8 per 1,000 square feet, he
No.
just changed
the initial.
the initial fee.
Right.
Then now it's a flat rate up to 2,000 square feet, because he's gotta go out, he's gotta review, he's gotta meet with people. And on these with George, he could meet 2 or 3 times for one site, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
the town's trying to recoup
just-
some of their money for going out. Even gas is expensive and the car is expensive, and insurance is expensive.
Oh.
All right.
good. Okay.
Say thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So, so this, am I reading this right, David?
Go ahead.
So if,
If I can answer it.
well, I mean, wait a minute, you're building up to 2,000 square feet, what? A house?
A raised ranch, a cape, yeah.
So your total, cost per square foot is 150. Well,
No.
then why does it, why?
No. That's a construction permit
That's the
fee.
basic.
That's the basic, but now you gotta take out a permit for plumbing, electrical, mechanical.
Yeah,
other
But
permit
I
fees.
would
I
read the
get
same
that.
way, Heidi.
Yeah,
I would have
'cause it
read it
said
as a
slash.
slash
Good.
per square foot.
Yeah, no,
So that's a flat, up to 2,000 square feet, it's
Yep.
a flat 150.
yep,
Yeah.
But then you gotta do the electrical and you gotta do the
that's
plumbing.
just the construction permit fee. When you
That's
go in and, when you go in and take out a permit to build a house.
But
Yeah,
then
so-
if you went over 3,000, it would be $8 a thousand, right?
That's also low.
It is, but it's still,
Usually by square foot.
Yeah,
Square
that's
foot.
what I was looking at, it looked like that.
$8 a thousand square feet.
Well, then maybe we need to
Now
get
we're
that
up to-
clarified.
I think you do because $150 just for a 2,000 square foot house.
That seems
Very low.
extremely low.
Very low.
Yeah,
It was, well,
But
it's hard
that's
to say.
only
Construction.
your,
the cost,
your house permit, electrical.
That's
and
charged
plumbing,
separately.
and that's all charged separate.
Separate.
And then there's a
I mean,
plan
I paid
review.
more than $150.
well, the problem.
Permit to do my bathroom, I just.
The
No.
problem, you know, Carol, the problem.
It's Patty.
Patty, sorry. I did that to you for years. The problem is it can't be 2,000, it can't be $150 per square foot, because that's 300 grand.
that's the building cost.
That's the building cost, really.
Yeah.
The building cost.
But it's just the way
So it
it's
can't be
written up
$150 per square foot.
Well, it changed
Well,
from
then we need-
95
Right.
to 150.
It
So
we
maybe
doubled
we
it.
need to check it. So maybe we need to get an explanation from,
I can talk to
George.
George.
Yeah, because $150 seems low.
2,000 square feet
Is 150.
2,000 to 3,000 square feet is 175.
I get it,
That is what.
That is what he means, that's it.
I get it.
Per
I
square
mean, I
foot?
agree.
Or
No,
just the
no,
total?
no, well, per square.
Well,
foot,
that's what I'm saying.
$300,000.
Saying that it's basing the cost on square footage, so
Alright.
here are the square footages on the
Can you-
left, and that's the cost.
What's the
So-
plus basic?
So,
fee?
okay, let's back up a little bit.
That's the $75 right there.
Then down here, permit values,
Because it's
Mm.
over
building,
3,000.
so I'm assuming
Under that,
it's a
read
building
under that.
permit,
If it's over. 3,000
$75 plus $8,
Right.
1,000 square
One
feet.
one
Plus
thing, one
basically.
conversation, please.
What's that
One
mean?
conversation.
No, that's not the old one.
No,
That's the
that's
new
the
one.
new one.
Is it-
Let's, one conversation at a time, please. So it does say, because it was 50 plus 8 per thousand
Mhm.
with the $50 minimum.
So-
Now it's 75.
You gotta
plus
get
8.
2 building permits to build a building?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's,
Mm.
David, if you would please
I'll
go
talk to
back
George
and
Yeah, I
get
think we need more
clarification.
clarification on that.
Maybe he can write up a little note or something
I
about
will,
what that
I'll
is.
print these out and I'll just go over it with
So
him
we'll-
and
Alright.
make sure I can report
We'll
back.
bring
to
it
you.
back.
We'll
to the
bring
next
it
meeting.
back.
Yeah,
We'll bring it
yeah,
back.
I think this was confusing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next we have the, we have the resolution to support and approve the Foster School District's necessity of school construction application for RIDE Stage 2 approval. They approached us to sign this. If somebody wants to read it. and
Oh, yeah,
then-
I'm doing it right now, really fast.
Go.
Oh, hold on. Okay, yeah, I'm going. All right, Town of Foster, Rhode Island Resolution 2024-03 to support and approve the Foster School District's necessity of school construction application for RIDE Stage 2 approval. On the 25th day of April 2024, the Foster Town Council did adopt the following resolution by a vote of blank to blank, which resolution is set forth as follows. Resolved, whereas the Foster Town Council shares the Foster School District's desire to provide all of the town's students with 21st century learning facilities. Whereas in support of this endeavor, it is necessary to offer students with educational environments that will incorporate different types of collaboration and learning spaces to enhance students' daily experiences. Whereas the Foster School Committee has completed a comprehensive application for Stage 2 approval by the Rhode Island Department of Education, RIDE, consistent with the Rhode Island School Construction Regulations that addresses the mutual goals of both the Town Council and the School Committee. And whereas 200-RICR-20-05-4.9.3, subsection A6A of the regulations requires the submission of documentation demonstrating the Town Council's support of the Stage 2 submission to RIDE. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the members of the Foster Town Council, hereby support and approve the Foster School District's necessity of school construction application to RIDE for Stage 2 approval. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage by the Foster Town Council, whereto the following bear witness signed Susan M. Dillon, Town Clerk, and Foster Town Council Denise L. DeFranco, Town Council President.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I'll make a motion that we support this resolution and authorize Town Council President to sign it.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you. Oh, excuse me. And then the food truck will be moved to the 23rd. And then the last one on open session is Foster Townhouse Survey Contract. You have Mr. Gould, who is one of the approved contractors for the townhouse by the state, has submitted this contract.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the pleasure of
So
it?
the contract, I'll read the contract so
Mhm.
people know what we're talking about. It is contract for survey of south side of the 1796 Foster Townhouse to include removal of siding above water tables and the water tables in order to inspect the sills, bottom ends of wall planks, posts, remove clapboards on the right side of the south doorway to inspect wall planks, remove door casings on inside of doorway for inspection, drop ceiling panels in the basement and inspect sill, framing and underside of flooring, determine impact on the south side if still if sill replacement is required. Close up the areas that were opened and make watertight. Photograph areas that are exposed. Involve Gordon Rogers in the survey so he can see what is found or not found. Deliver a concise report as to our findings. An invoice for a total of $3,358 will be submitted upon completing the above work.
Okay.
All right, I remember this now, Denise.
Mm-hmm.
This is work that he's finishing that Gordon had already asked him to do because he had asked. And Gordon, I think, already said that he was going to find the funding in his budget. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay.
So remember when we were talking earlier,
Right.
seems like hours ago.
It was.
It was about the capital and that this was from the buildings and grounds budget and DPW.
Okay. So we.
So all we need is Denise to sign it.
Yeah, authorize it.
I make a motion if we have Denise sign it.
Be aware of the notice of cancellation or anything before you sign it? It's in here,
Julia reviewed the contract.
so it's all set, that's all, okay.
Yeah, and it's related to other work that he has done. This was something that was discovered.
And he
while
provided
doing
us
the
with
other
his.
work.
Okay. Okay.
But the notice of cancellation is just if you decide you want to revoke, you can do it within 3 business days.
Okay. Okay, and he did provide the insurance, et cetera. So,
Yeah, done well.
so do you have the, oh, I think I have it right here. And he provided us with 2, so I could copy
So
both.
Stony made a motion for you to
Yeah.
sign it. I'll second that.
I thought it was good. Discussion,
No.
any further discussion? Any? So Chris made a motion, Heidi seconded it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay. All right, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
I'll move to go into executive closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5. Oh, what are we at here? Are we all on the same thing?
Two,
Two.
5A2, 5A, and 5A1. Those are the 2 reasons.
Okay. For discussion of personnel according to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A1. And for discussions or work sessions regarding collective bargaining contract negotiations. According to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2. And to reconvene an open session and further to keep the minutes of said meeting closed.
Good night.
And the minutes of minutes of all executive sessions held previous to this meeting be closed and remain to provisions of the general laws of Rhode Island 42-46-4 and 5.
Second.
Discussion, here,
Bye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Night, Cheryl.
Good night, Carol.
Yes.
I'm
She already asked.
Viva. Oh,
Right.
So,
Yes.
we're going to,
great minds.
so
I think we have to. Go ahead, make the motion.
You
because-
guys can turn your microphones off because we're in executive session now. So we're done.